There's no body, was there?
I never saw a body.
Thank you.
I wish I had.
Sounds like that's a little rehearsed.
Not at all. It's not at all.
Objection.
I'll let the answer stand.
You left the location about 1:45. Is that right?
Yes.
You didn't see anything out of the ordinary as you got in. Was it your car or Mr. McCabe's car?
It was my car.
When you got in that SUV of yours, you didn't see anything out of the ordinary outside, correct?
I wasn't looking outside.
Okay. I know that that is the answer that you want to give to every question. My question is yes or no. Did you see anything out of the ordinary?
No.
Thank you. You didn't see anything out of the ordinary when you got in the vehicle?
No.
You didn't see anything out of the ordinary when the vehicle backed up?
No.
When that vehicle turned to the, I guess it would be to the right, to leave toward Chapman, and the headlights illuminated the area in front of you? Didn't see anything out of the ordinary then?
I wasn't looking out the front window.
Again, there's that question. There's that answer. My question is, did you see anything out of the ordinary?
Yes or
Well,
no,
you were asking
Jen?
about the headlights out the
no.
front. That's why I said I didn't see anything out there front.
Oh, you didn't see the headlights turned on?
I was turned to the back.
Right.
Of course you were.
Did you see that the headlights came on in the car?
Yes, in the driveway, the headlights came on.
Right. And you're seated in the front passenger seat, correct?
Correct.
So according to you, you got in the car and immediately twisted yourself, looking directly to the rear and never turned back around and never looked outside the windows.
Correct.
Got it. Is that normal for you?
Yeah, I'm a very chatty person, so I turned to talk to the girls.
So you made sure that
Yeah.
you didn't look out the window.
Chatty chat chat.
Nope, that's not it at all.
You also didn't hear anybody, you did hear some girls in the back, since they were so chatty, talking about bread and sandwiches or something, right?
Correct.
But you never heard anybody say anything about noticing anything out of the ordinary, correct?
Correct.
You didn't hear Julie Nagel say that she saw a black object in the yard.
Never
Nope.
heard that.
Didn't see or hear anything out of the
Turned
ordinary.
around, looking right at it, according to you, correct?
Correct.
Indeed, engaging them in conversation,
Smart
according
ass.
to you,
Correct.
so that you can make sure that you weren't looking out the front or right windows.
Objection.
Can you answer that? Is that why you did it?
No, that's not why I did it. I was talking to the two girls.
Mm-hmm.
When you got home, what did you
I
do?
know you did that.
I went up to bed.
What time do you think you got home?
Somewhere
1:45?
after approximately between 2 and 2:15.
No.
I'm
It took you a few minutes to drop the girls off.
correct.
You're Googling at 2:27.
When you got home, you got on your phone, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Checking basketball scores
Before you got
for a
on the phone, you went
basketball
upstairs.
site that
You got
doesn't
it.
have scores.
Yes.
In
Did you
fact,
use
they
any
weren't even playing.
applications? Well, let me ask it this way first. Did you make any phone calls, just using your phone, any phone calls after you got home, either downstairs or?
They've got your records.
I do not believe so.
Did you use any applications to communicate with anybody through Wi-Fi? Do you know what I mean by that? Like FaceTime audio?
She
or
said
WhatsApp,
she
phone calls,
texted
things
her
like that?
Text message?
No,
nieces
actually,
and her sister
you may not use these, but I'm asking,
making
did
fun
you
of
use
them
any kind of third-party
dancing in the rain or something, or under an umbrella. I'm sure she said that.
VoIP calls other than just a phone call?
And a group chat.
No.
Okay.
She sent a
Sounds like
text
you don't
to
even know what that is.
I don't even know what you're talking
her
about.
husband and another
Fair enough.
individual.
So it's safe to say that you didn't use or you don't use any multimedia to communicate. You don't use FaceTime or Snapchat or Signal or anything like that.
I've used FaceTime with my children, yes.
Not for phone calls.
No.
Like FaceTime audio is a way that you can make the call. No,
I've FaceTimed with my kids at school, but
that's videos. Right?
oh, okay. So yeah, I guess not.
You didn't do that night either.
Not that I recall.
Did you? Now I'm going to get back to your question. Did you text anybody?
I did, yes.
Who did you text?
Yep.
I texted my sisters. And I texted my husband and a friend in a group chat.
Yeah.
You texted your husband and a friend in a group chat?
Mhm.
Is that yes?
Yes.
Your husband was home?
Yes.
Lying beside you. Didn't he fall asleep like he always does, you said?
I want to switch gears for a second.
Watch the blink
and ask
rate,
you real quick
body
about
language.
later that morning when you went to John O'Keefe's house. You mentioned on Friday that you went into his house and began to look around for him when you first got there with Carrie Roberts and my client, Karen Reed, correct?
Yes.
You indicated that you looked in his bedroom and saw that the bed was made, correct?
Yes.
You indicated that you looked around other parts of the house looking for him, searching for him. Is that right?
Yes.
You obviously saw the blankets and pillows on the couch downstairs in the living room, correct?
I peeked over at the couch.
And you're aware that Karen Reed stayed on the couch
Peeked.
that night to wait
Like-
for John to come home.
I'm not aware of that, no.
Hello, mister. Hello. Let me get out of
You
bed.
testified on Friday that my client said at the scene, when you got back to the scene, 34 Fairview, just after 6 a.m., that she said, I hit him 3 times. She declared it, correct?
Correct.
Not once, not twice, 3 times. I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, correct?
Correct.
You have a very specific memory of that event, do you not?
I do.
Obviously, that's an incredibly impactful thing for you to remember. Is that right?
It was an impactful statement, yes.
And you remember it today as well as you remembered it the day she did it.
Yes.
Where you been a sucky for?
I may have just a moment. Thank you.
I hope she's wearing 3 pairs of undies because she's going to need it today.
May I?
Yes.
It's just the entirety. I'm going to hand you a document. Did you, before I ask you about that specific document,
Are these the
did
phone
you
records?
review anything before you testified in preparation for your testimony today or Friday?
Yes.
Did you review your grand jury testimony?
I did, yes.
Understood. You did review your grand jury testimony, correct?
Yes.
So the document in front of you, you recognize it?
Yes.
That is in fact a true and correct copy of your grand jury testimony that you gave on April 26th, 2022. Is that right?
Correct.
Smile, clumsy. Smile.
You'll agree that your testimony in that case, in that hearing, rather, April of 2022, that was just a few months after the events in question, right?
Yes.
You were under oath at the time that you gave that testimony,
Yes.
and you were subject to the penalty of perjury when you were answering those questions, correct?
Yes.
Ms.
Go,
McNeil, I'd
Mr.
like you to
Unity,
turn to
go.
the page, since you've reviewed this, turn to the page of that document where you ever said in your testimony that my client said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
There you go.
Was I asked what she said?
I get to ask the questions.
Well, I'd like you to direct me where to look.
I want you to look at the entire grand jury testimony if you need to, and turn to the page where you ever said that my client said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
I'm not sure if it's in this document, but I can tell you today with 100% clarity, she said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
But you didn't tell
On
the
that
federal
morning.
grand jury. Really?
So it's not in that document, is it?
I'm not sure if I could take the time, and do you want me to read over 200 pages?
May I approach?
Yes.
No, I don't want to take
I'll
it.
point you to it.
Because you just indicated that you reviewed this document in anticipation of your testimony, right?
Correct.
So you've gone over it recently.
A few weeks back.
So we don't need to read it. You know that you never testified to that in the grand jury in April of 2022, don't you?
I don't know that as a fact. I would have to reread 222 pages or however long it is.
You think you might have missed it when you reviewed your testimony in anticipation for, I'm sorry, when you reviewed your transcript in anticipation for your testimony?
Objection.
Hello.
I read it a few weeks ago,
It's probably the most powerful part of your testimony, ma'am.
and I will never forget it.
Objection.
Okay, so that's stricken.
Would you agree? Do you think that's a powerful part of your testimony?
Objection.
Blink right, blink right.
It is, yes.
Did you see it in the transcript?
I cannot recall. It's over 200 pages.
Dodgy McDodge.
Yeah, approach on.
Yes.
Let's point it out, shall we? I'm sure you've got it highlighted, Mr. Unity. There's no way I could have slept through this. No way. Oh, look, there's highlighter.
Yeah. These are select pages.
Mhm.
Out of
Oh,
your
it's
grand jury
Jackson.
testimony. Isn't it true, Ms. McCabe, that you were asked when you testified no fewer than 12 times what my client said, either at the scene or on the way to the scene?
12 times. Mm.
At the scene, I was asked twice, according to this.
My question is, isn't it true that in April of 2022, you testified no fewer than 12 times, 12 separate statements you gave about what my client's statements were, either at the scene or in the car ride on the leading up to go into the scene? You remember that?
I do.
Okay, so on page 190 of what you're looking at,
Mhm.
these should all be highlighted.
It is.
You testified that my client said to you over the phone at 4:53 a.m., she asked the question, did I hit him? You see that?
I do.
Number two, on page 192, talking about when y'all were in the car on the way to the scene, Karen asked the question, could I have hit him? You see that?
Yes.
Page 193, lines 1 through 2. You testified that in the car, once again, she asked the question, could she have hit him? You were relaying that, meaning, could I have hit him? Correct?
Correct.
Page 193, line 23. In John's driveway, she asked the
He's
question.
enjoying this
quote,
way too
and
much.
she's asking if she could have hit him.
Yes.
Page 201, driving to Fairview. She asked the question, what if I hit him? And could I have hit him? Correct?
Correct.
Page 202, lines 1 through 2. While driving to Fairview, she asked the question, could I have hit him?
Correct.
Page 208, lines 24 through 25, outside at Fairview, she asked the question, did I hit him? And went on to ask, could I have hit him? Correct?
Correct.
And your testimony was also on page 208 that Karen was yelling nonstop in front of the female EMT, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Is he dead? Correct?
Correct.
May I approach?
Yes.
That's 12 times that you reiterated under oath, under penalty of perjury in April of 2022, what my client's statements were either at the scene or leading up to getting to the scene, correct?
Correct.
Every single one of those, 12 separate times, you indicated that she asked a question, something like, could I have hit him or did I hit him, correct?
Correct.
Not one time in that testimony did you say she
I
declared,
hit him.
I hit him,
I
I
hit him.
hit him, I hit him. Did you?
The questions that were asked, when she said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, that was at the scene in response to an officer asking questions. What I just read was us when she first called me, or when we were driving in the car, or when we were at John's house. So I was answering the question that I was asked.
So you believe that you weren't asked the question, did she say to an officer, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him? And if you're not asked the question, did she say to an officer, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him? You're not going to volunteer that she said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. That's your testimony.
No, that's
What
not.
is your testimony?
My testimony is an officer was asking her what his name was and different things about him. And at that point, she was saying, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
Which officer?
I do not recall.
Well, you recall the I hit him. You just told me that was the most impactful thing in the morning.
It was shocking.
So what officer did she say this to, supposedly?
I was more focused on her and her hysteria than which officer was asking the question.
So you have no idea who the officer was even, correct?
I'm not sure which officer was asking her. It could have been an EMT. Someone said, what is his name? Does he have medical conditions? How old is he?
But you were asked that question, ma'am. On page 208, you were asked what she said in front of the female EMT who was asking her questions. And her answer was, your answer was, she said, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Is he dead? Is that right?
That is correct.
That
But-
might have been a good time to offer up that she confessed, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, right?
Objection.
Sustained as to that form.
How many objections
Ms. McCabe,
Did the
the
defense
truth of the matter is you've manufactured
make
this new
on
story
Friday
for this jury because
the
you
director?
think it helps you out.
I don't even think there was one.
Absolutely not.
So I just gave her the shovel.
You called 911 at 6:04 a.m. Is that right?
Yes.
Very calmly.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, Exhibit 36 has already been marked and entered. I would ask to play a portion.
As your
of that
husband
911
stated,
tape, not the entirety of it.
Okay.
you cope well in a crisis. That was convenient. Conveniently offered.
With the court's permission, I'd ask to play about runtime 1:30 to 1:45. If you can do that in 2 seconds. Yes. Do you recognize the voice on that tape?
Yes, that's mine.
Appear to be a true and accurate, at least that portion, a true and accurate reporting of the 911 call that you made that morning.
It was a very brief clip. I'd have to hear more.
Go ahead and play, starting at runtime 1:30 to about runtime 1:45.
46 years old.
46, how long has he been outside?
I don't know. I don't know. He got out of the car and
Stop.
You got out of the car.
Was that you? Is
Yes, that was.
that the 911 call?
Yes, it was.
And what did you just say?
I said, I don't know. He got out of the car.
He got out of the car.
Mhm.
You said, correct?
Yes.
And this was at 6:03 in the morning, correct?
Correct.
This is before you ever talked to Brian Albert,
Correct.
before you ever talked to your sister Nicole Albert,
Correct.
Got your story
before
straight.
you ever talked to Chris Albert,
Correct.
before you ever talked to Julie Albert.
Correct.
You haven't talked to anybody at this point other than Carrie Roberts, correct?
And Karen Reed.
And my client.
Correct.
And in that 911 call, you said he got out of the car.
Mm-hmm.
I did, because Karen Reed had told me that she had left him
Oh,
there.
did
Your
she?
words were, he got out of the car, correct?
Correct.
Did you make any other calls other than to 911?
I called my sister.
What time
Yeah.
was that?
Who didn't even bother to come out of the house?
I believe it was after the 911, but I'm not sure.
You claim that your sister didn't
Ramsey.
answer. Is that right?
She did not answer.
But you do know that your phone extraction shows that that was an answered call at 6:07.
If that's what it shows, but I can tell you she did not answer the phone.
And you are as sure about that as you are, my client said, I hit him 3 times.
I certainly am, yes.
Perfect. You also called her at 6:08.
I might have called her twice, yes.
Your Honor, I have an exhibit.
Where you going?
This may be as good a time as any to take a break if you wish. I just
Oh, no, don't take a break. No.
Folks, we'll take the morning.
I suppose Jen does need to change your undies. So, fair's fair. Oh, Karen's been waiting for how long for this moment? You get 'em, girl. You get 'em. Wow. Well, don't break for too long because no.
So, Mr. Jackson, when you said it's an exhibit,
1
is it
a.m.
in
here.
evidence?
It's not.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask to mark it. It's a digital recording of a 4-minute voicemail on John O'Keefe's phone.
Oh,
It does include,
we have this.
the 911 call. I don't want to play the entirety of the 911 call, but I do want to play the entirety of this particular 4-minute voicemail.
Okay. Do you know what it is, Mr. Lally?
I do.
Okay. So, is there an agreement that it's coming in?
There's no objection to it.
Okay. I just needed to know if it would make sense for me to review it if there was an
Yeah.
objection.
All rise for the court, please.
Yeah, so what happened? Let me just turn this volume down on there whilst we watch the fan. What happened was, let me, oh, where's my, there it is. That one? No. Let's try that one. Oh, look, it doesn't matter. So yeah, what happened was when Jen and Karen and Kerry were looking for John in the car, and they were on their way from John's house to Fairview. Karen was in the back seat, back passenger, behind Jen, who was in the front passenger. And that side of the car was the side that was approaching the direct property line of Nicole and Brian Albert, where John was found. And Karen was calling John at the time, or trying to get in contact with him on her phone. And as she did that, she saw him in the snow and basically yelled out, "Stop the fucking car, there he is." And so Kerry pulled up in the middle of the road, and Karen threw her phone down and it went into the back seat, but it didn't disconnect. So it kept recording, and it went to John's voicemail, and it recorded 4 minutes on his voicemail of that initial time frame when basically Karen jumps out of the car and runs over to John to try and help him and try and resuscitate him or whatever. And you can hear in this, we played it on the deep dive I did on Jen, but you get to hear that how calm Jen is on the phone to the dispatcher. You know, you've just pulled up and your friend of 10 years is apparently lying in the snow, you know, deceased. And there is not one shred of panic or anything in her voice. She is calm. She's collected. She basically states he got out of the car, as you just heard. And then she goes on to say exactly how old he is and just the whole demeanor of her reaction to that scene and scenario is just wrong. It's just, whereas in the background you can hear Karen screaming in panic and just like frantically trying to work out what's going on and how to help John. And the dispatcher says, you know, get some blankets and try and keep him warm because they said he was in the snow. So they're frantically looking for something to keep him warm. Yet, now, wouldn't Jen have thought, well, hang on, my sister lives just here, right there. Just, you know, just step over the body and go to the front door. And there's plenty of blankets in there. No, she doesn't go in. She rings her twice. It's 2 fire engines, at least 1 EMT, and apparently 5 or 6 squad cars, lights. Nobody from the Albert residence comes out. I thought Brian was a detective. Wouldn't you be a little bit curious what's on your front lawn? But I think there is a section in that 4-minute call right at the very end where she's off the phone from the dispatcher and she's ringing Nicole. And I think it's very difficult to hear, but it sounds like she's saying something, don't come down to assist or something like that. Hopefully they can clarify the audio a bit more because the recordings that I've heard weren't particularly clear. Doesn't matter how many times you listen to it. I don't have the equipment to, like Recovery Addict, to remove the background noise and assist the audio. So I probably should send him an email with a copy of it so that he can have it ready, because I think he's doing day 14 today. I think he's a day behind. So yeah, he could fix up the audio and have it ready to play. But it surprised me why they were asking Matt McCabe all these questions about how his wife behaves in a crisis and you know, how calm she was, and then all these questions about her Apple Watch, whether she wore it to bed, and yeah, and everyone, you know, I was watching the trial on with Emily Baker, and she's decided to go into this trial and watch it as a juror would. So no previous research into it and just purely based on the facts presented in trial. And the lawyer, you know, has decided to do that as well. And they could not, in my opinion, have chosen a worse case to do this, because they are so frustrated with Lally and his seemingly unnecessary and highly descriptive, repetitive questions of all these witnesses, but they don't know the reason behind it. The prosecution is trying to offer up excuses and reasons for this behavior before cross-examination, because he knows all of these phone records are coming out, all of the body cam footage is coming out, all of the extractions from all their mobiles, the ones that weren't replaced, show all of the deleted Google searches, text messages, phone calls, the lot, right down to where she says she at 2:27 a.m. she was looking at her phone, checking the basketball scores for her daughter's basketball team, and not only does that site that she was searching not show the basketball scores, but it was actually the off season and there was no basketball matches at the time because the coach of the basketball team coaches elsewhere in the winter and wasn't even there. So they weren't playing any basketball games. So yeah, I wonder how much of that they'll bring out. But this is crunch time now. This is probably the most important cross-examination of the entire trial, in my opinion. And yeah, I couldn't. I was laying in bed with my remote control just going, ooh, ooh, and just thought, no, I'm coming online. I'm doing it. My cats aren't very happy with me, but oh well, they'll get over it. And I don't have to work tomorrow, so I can sleep. It's all good. So I'm having my third cup of coffee. And whatever you do, I don't know if you can get these in the UK or the US or wherever you're watching from, but in Australia, I discovered these nasty things. Okay, you see that? Loaded cookies. All right. Schnackadoodles. They're terrible. Oh, sorry, schnickerdoodles, they're called, with a biscuit butter filling. Oh, my Lord. So the biscuit butter filling is on the inside. And what you can do, apparently, I wouldn't know because never had them before. Just put them in the microwave for 20 seconds and the inside goes all ooey gooey. And apparently that's really nice. But I'm not leaving this seat to go and microwave my snickerdoodle sensor. So I'll just eat it as it is. Because I need sugar to keep me awake. More sugar. Why did I put the fan on? What's with the fan? It's just me. Well, maybe I can play something else whilst this is on, because this afternoon I was having a play around with the app called Suno.com, and it's an AI app that you can basically write your own songs with. So you can either choose a theme and get the AI app to make up the lyrics, or you can put your own lyrics in and then choose the genre of the music that you want, whether it be pop or funk or disco or whatever. So I've done that for like a theme song for the Defence Rests. And I thought, I'll do one that might be like my thing. I might make up a song for every case that I follow because it's free. You can make them up as you go along. So I wrote down a few words and I made a song about the Treehouse Murders and Tyrone Tucker. So maybe I'll play that for you. Hang on. I am watching Court TV, so we won't miss anything, I promise. Now, where did I save it? There we go. Let's see if this will play.
The good is his name, and his life is not the same since the wrongful dawn arrest while he was down in Key West. Matthew Bonnet lost his life by the stabbing of a knife, and in Treehouse kind of shack two assailants did attack. Remain suspect for the crime, only served minimal time. Travis Johnson took a plea, and Rory Wilson lost the key. All the evidence in court was from a witness that was bought. Paula Belmont testified, but the court felt justified to charge Tucker with the crime and waste 2 years of his time. It was down in Monroe County, and $2 million was the bounty, so he spent 2 years in jail until Lauren posted bail. His pros say he would defend his innocence until the end, and Judge Jones, with all his fury, got upset by hung jury. So the prosecutors filed, but they want another trial. They disqualified the judge, cause they knew he held a grudge. So Judge Morgan takes the case, and conditions are put in place. So when Tucker missed the test, he served a warrant for his arrest. 3.1 is now the bounty issued out of Monroe County. Crooked cops put him through hell, locked him up in a jail cell. Now they claim he tried to flee. Won't you set poor Tucker free?
Boom! I know I'm an idiot, but it was fun. Or maybe we could sell it or raise some money with it for his defense, because he's back in. Well, I can use this as an update time while I'm here. I don't know if anyone saw Justice is a Process's live stream yesterday, but Tyrone is back in Florida. He's back in Monroe County. He's in their detention center. I have a snapshot of his mugshot. Let's see if I've got it saved in the right format. Where is it? There it is. No, invalid file type, of course. Yes, so he's back down in Monroe County Jail in Florida. I'm not sure how he got there, but apparently, as we read, Dennis Ward said that it would be in shackles, but they snuck him down Friday night. And they are now, the documents they're putting out for the charges, because he'll have to go to court now for the parole violation, but they're making it out to sound like he was about to flee, despite him telling pretrial services that he was coming back to Key West to surrender himself, despite him ringing his bail bondsman. He still had the ankle monitor on, and he was under the impression that because he had failed the test and he was in violation of his parole, that he was no longer under the parole services. So he was coming back to Key West to surrender himself. And Lauren had booked him the flights, and he wanted to submit some motions. I think he had 4 motions to submit prior to him going, because he didn't know how long he would have access to his computer and everything once he got down there. He knew they'd probably take it all off him and put him straight in jail and not give him a chance to do anything like that. So he wanted to file all those before he left. So she actually had to reschedule that flight for him 4 times that day. But in their document, in their motion document for the court case, for the hearing that they're going to have whilst he's down there prior to the trial, they they've put in there that he was apprehended at the airport, and the destination was unknown. So they're making it out to sound like he was about to abscond and disappear, which is just so dirty, so dirty. And yet they also uh, what's his name? Travis Johnson went MIA for a bit as well, and he's still out on bond, on parole, whatever you call it. And yeah, he went MIA, and then he was found. He got in touch with parole services, and basically, his dad had been unwell, and his dad lives in Texas, so he had gone to Texas to help care for his dad, and then was like just living on the streets pretty much. They said he was homeless. So the same district attorney's office that has put this, Ty misses the actual timing of his urinalysis. So he turned up too late and couldn't have it done, but turned up the next day and actually had the test and passed it. But gets arrested and put on a $3.1 million bond. Yet John Travis Johnson, who is more than likely the actual person that committed this crime, gets offered by the same district attorney. Their motion in his case for the parole board was that his parole be turned into administrative parole, basically saying that, he can come and go as he pleases so that he can go and look after his father, and no consequences, really. So that's the inequality of, this guy didn't tell anybody that he was going to Texas to look after his father. He did the wrong thing, and was missing in action for a period of time. And yet Ty advised everybody that he was coming back to Florida to surrender himself. He advised the court as well. And they still apprehended him as a fugitive, and slapped to 3. Well, it's 2.5 for the homicide, but now they've added additional charges now, and I think it's $200,000 for the other 3 additional charges. But if you go over to Justice is a Process, his live stream yesterday pulls up all the documents in the motions that they're going to address for both Ty Tucker and John Travis Johnson pre-trial, because I think the trial starts, I think it's due to start in early September. So yeah, there's a lot of work that Ty has to do between now and then to get ready for trial. Oh, the camera's moving on court TV. Excuse me, but I'm still seeing the fan. So, but he doesn't have any representation as yet. And to get a court-appointed attorney, you need to meet certain criteria, meaning your financial status and asset status is a certain level, as accordingly. But apparently, because even though he and Lauren have separated, they are still legally married. So that apparently removes his ability to have a court-appointed attorney, because he's still married to Lauren, who is fairly wealthy. So he can't afford a lawyer because he's got no money. He's not been working, obviously, and they're separated, so you can read between the lines there. And she's also battling apparently a civil suit in court at the moment because of Penny Phelps has some civil suit against her. So she's shedding out still thousands of dollars to fight that. And yeah, can't shell out anymore, which is fair enough. So yes, any suggestions on how to raise some money for Ty? Send them through. Because I have no idea. Being in Australia, I don't know how the US system works as far as that goes. I know there's a few things like GoFundMe and what have you, but you would have to have a US bank account, I would assume, and I can't do any of that from where I am. And the other thing I needed to touch on too was the new trial that I was looking to start with the child in the storage locker, Cheyenne Porter and Jose Alvarez. I spent most of my day trying to get onto the Kentucky District Circuit Court. I found the docket. I found all the information on which court they're in, what their charges were. But I could not find anywhere at all that was actually providing live stream, and a lot of the sites completely blocked me out because of my location. It just said invalid location, information not available. So there must be some sites that I can't access, and obviously, the big sites like Court TV and Law and Crime, and even some of the smaller channels, they're all streaming Chad Daybell or Karen Reid. So I can't get access anywhere. And if anyone can find it for me and send me a link, that would be fantastic, because I would like to cover the trial, but I can't find it to access. But if I had a link of some sort, I could perhaps do it with a VPN or something and get around it that way. I just need to know where to look and where to find it. But it's in Davies County, Kentucky, but it starts with an O. I can't remember it now. It's 1:20 a.m. and the fan is going around in circles. It's making me sleepy. Oh, it's moving. Hang on. I'll go back to sharing the screen. Oh. Just have to add it back to the stage, that's all. Come on. Come on. Come back. Baby, come back. Oh, look at that.
You are
Right,
unmuted.
So, Mr. Jackson, is it all queued up, or do we need we need the witness, but were there any questions
Don't
first,
put
or
it
are we
on the
just going
far
to the
queue.
video?
Put it on the near queue.
All right, let's bring Ms. McCabe in.
Bring Miss McCabe in. Woo-hoo. Hope she changed her knickers.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And
McCabe,
go.
I want to go back very briefly to something you said just before we broke, and that was in respect of the statements that you attribute to my client out of the scene, you said, well, there was an officer possibly asking questions, or it could have been a female EMT, and I wasn't answering questions about that, correct? Hence, you didn't say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
Can you be clear on your question?
Let me rephrase that. Before we broke a few
Hello,
minutes ago,
mister.
you had said,
Another one.
the reason I didn't say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him,
Hello.
is because I was never asked. And the subject never came up about what an officer asked her when she declared that. So I just didn't offer it. And then you said, or it could have been an EMT.
Yes, I'm unclear who was there.
Come and say hello.
Isn't it true that at the grand jury, the question that was posed to you, and this is council page 208.
Hello. Come
The
on.
question that was posed to you is, quote,
Just tell
so
them.
what happens next with yourself, Ms. Roberts, and Ms. Reed? And your answer was, so there are different, police officers getting statements from us. At one point, I'm standing with Ms. Reed and she's saying, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? And there was, I believe, an EMT, a female, standing right next to me and listening to her yelling, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? It was pretty much nonstop. Remember that testimony?
I do.
So in point of fact, you were answering the direct question about what happened in front of the police officer and the EMT, correct?
There were multiple police officers and multiple EMTs present.
So now this is another police officer and a different EMT.
I'm not saying that.
Okay.
The
But
nasty
nowhere
lady.
in this did you say that she declared the words, I hate him. Correct? We agree on that.
Correct.
Your Honor, I have an item I would like to have marked as next in order.
Okay.
May I approach?
Yes.
My cats have all got their knickers in a knot because mummy's not in bed. Hmm?
Thank you.
With court permission, I would like to play a portion of this.
All right, this is
Okay.
the 911 call from John O'Keefe's voicemail. They're windscreen wipers.
Mr. Cape, I've paused the audio tape just to ask you a couple of foundational questions. Do you
Mhm.
recognize what's on that audio tape?
Yes, that is my voice.
Okay. You recognize you starting a 911 call, correct?
Correct.
Similar to the call we just listened to a few minutes ago, which was the actual 911 call, correct?
What's the difference between the two of them?
I'm about to
One was
explain it.
recorded on
It's a confusing
The
question.
voicemail and one was recorded by the dispatcher.
This appears to be a open voicemail overhearing your 911 call.
Mm.
You recognize that?
Surprise!
Now that you explain it, okay.
You hear a rhythmic boom, 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 boom.
The windshield wipers.
Okay, so that was my next question. That would have been an open voicemail that was recorded inside the cab of the SUV that you were
Correct.
seated in, correct?
Correct.
Overhearing you call 911 and overhearing.
Didn't even get out of the car.
Ambient noise at the scene, correct?
Correct.
Does that sound like a true and correct copy of at least the portion of the 911 call that you heard?
I have to listen to it again, but
Well, why don't we continue listening to it and see if you recognize it?
okay.
With your permission?
Yes.
By the way, it's about 4 minutes in total, Your Honor.
I don't think she knows they had this.
I don't people in the area. I mean,
Do you hear a
That's Carrie
person in
and
the
Karen you
background
can hear in the
screaming?
background.
Yes,
Who is that?
Miss Reed.
I'll go ahead and play this.
You can't fake that, Tara. She's begging her friends to help her. You trying to look like you're upset now?
Mr. King, did you hear the audio recording that we just marked into evidence?
I did. It was very muffled and some parts were very hard to understand.
Understood.
Mhm.
The person on the phone, who was that person?
I
Didn't
called
say.
911.
It was
And the
very
person that was-
upsetting
For the most part, the person's voice
listening
was
to my
really
friend
screaming, sounding
in such shock.
hysterical. Who was that?
Karen.
Could you also hear Carrie Roberts' voice at various times in the background?
Yes.
And she was, for lack of a better word, trying to calm Karen down.
Yes.
And at some point telling her to just shut up, you're not helping,
Yes, exactly.
because she was so hysterical and so upset.
Erratic.
I want to play the rest of this. It appears that this recording is longer than your 911 call. You would agree with that?
Well, I'd have
Ah,
to see.
But the 911 call's already ended, correct?
I'm not sure how long was the 911 call.
Okay, this is about 3.5 minutes.
so they
into
did
a
catch the
4-minute
phone call to Nicole.
recording. My only question is, would you agree that the 911 call is subsumed within this full 4-minute recording?
I couldn't make that from that muffled.
You couldn't tell?
I couldn't tell. So if you have my phone record, you could, I'm assuming,
Oh, they've
tell
got
when the 911 call ended, because I know the 911 call was long because there were multiple, they had transferred me multiple times.
Right. My question to you is, I'd like you to listen very, very closely, and I know that it is a muffled recording by
Mhm.
definition. I'm not going to do that. From this point forward, I want you to pay very close attention. I want to ask you if you hear a voice, very muffled, toward the end of this recording. We can play it with your permission.
Yes.
It says, don't come down to assist or something.
Stop. Did you hear a muffled voice in the foreground after you heard Ms. Reed scream or yell?
I heard two people talking.
And one of those was a very muffled voice on this recording, correct?
Most of the recording was muffled.
The one I'm talking about is I just played the
Mhm.
voice that was muffled in the
Don't be
foreground
evasive.
of the audio recording, for want of a better phrase.
Yes, you
heard
just,
that?
I heard that, yes.
Was that you?
I don't know.
I don't know if that was me.
There was nobody else in the cab of the car with you, was there?
I was standing at the trunk of the car, outside of the car.
Carrie
No, you
Roberts
weren't.
was over by Mr. O'Keefe,
Agree. Yes, they were kind of running back and forth at times.
and Karen was over by Mr. O'Keefe for most of that.
Yes,
But you were the one by the car.
back and forth.
Rubbish.
You called Nicole, your sister. By the way, did we finish playing this just for, okay, thank you.
That's the second pair of panties you need to change, Jen.
Okay, that appears to be the end of the tape.
Okay.
You called your sister at 6:07 and 42 seconds, correct?
I don't have my phone record in front of me,
Mhm.
Does that sound about right?
approximately.
And you made a second phone call at 6:08 and 17 seconds. Does that sound about right?
I did call her twice, yes.
And both of those calls show in your extraction that they were answered phone calls, correct?
I don't have my extraction in front of me.
Well, you've been asked this question a bunch of times, right? You were asked this
Yes, you
question
have.
at the other proceeding, is that right?
Yes,
You
and
were shown phone records.
well, if you have them, I could see them here.
You were shown phone records then,
Yes,
and at that time you were confronted with the fact that the phone records show a 7-second call for 6:07. correct?
Objection.
I'm going to strike the word confronted. Go ahead and ask.
I'll pick another
Go
word.
ahead and
You
ask the
were- You
question.
were shown evidence that the 6:07 call lasted 7 seconds.
my sister never answered the phone.
Okay.
Mhm.
I know you want to answer your own questions.
Yeah,
I'd like it if you'd answer my question. Were you shown records that showed the call lasted 7 seconds?
I cannot recall the exact record I was shown, but I was shown a phone record.
Okay. And you were shown that the same phone record showed that the 6:08 call lasted 8 seconds, right?
Again, I don't have it in front of me.
Does that sound about right?
About right, and there were a number of other calls that showed answered that weren't answered.
Well, we'll get to those in a minute.
Really?
So the two calls at 6:07 and 6:08, at least the records indicate about 15 seconds worth of open line time, talk time. 7 seconds, 8 seconds, right?
You have the record in front of you. I don't.
I'm just asking if you were confronted, there's that word again, if you were shown records that established that based on your own phone extraction, your phone records, that the 6:07 call, 7-second
That
call,
you belated.
6:08 call was an 8-second call, right?
I was shown records, but I don't know exactly what they were, how long the call said, because she never
What's the
answered
point?
the
What's the
phone
difference?
regardless.
You also made another phone call at 6:23, did you not? To Brian Albert?
If you could share my phone record, it would be very helpful.
Do you recall it?
I know I called my sister and I called my brother-in-law in the house. I do not know the exact times.
That's all I'm asking. You made a phone call to Brian Albert as well, right?
I believe so.
That was around 6:23. It was a few minutes after you had called Nicole twice, right?
Correct.
And that call was not answered.
None of them were answered.
But the record showed that that call was not answered, as opposed to Nicole's two calls, right?
Right.
Okay. The calls to Nicole were deleted from your phone before you turned that phone into law enforcement.
Not by me.
somebody else.
I
The
never
fairy?
deleted any calls
Mm-hmm.
when I willingly handed my phone over.
You claim that you didn't delete calls, but you do know that your phone was forensically analyzed and those calls were in the deleted file folder, correct?
I have seen that, but there were 20 calls all in a group that were all deleted. So cherry picking
Yeah.
a few makes it look a different way.
Okay, so we'll get to those.
Yeah, we
I'm not
will.
cherry picking anything, okay?
Mhm.
I'm asking you questions about the records.
Which I would love a copy of if I could see.
We'll get to that in a second. I'm just going by your memory. You've seen these records a bunch of times. You've been questioned about these records a bunch of times, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
Don't look at
we
Lally.
know that you called at 6:07, 6:08, or thereabouts, and about 6:23. 2 to Nicole, 1 to Brian, correct?
Correct.
And you'll agree with me that notwithstanding those phone calls, by the way, did you leave voicemails?
No.
When did you hang up? Before it went to voicemail, or was it into voicemail before you hung up?
So it was a bit of a hysterical scene that morning, and I was in a state of shock. And I was just calling my sister
Really?
and my brother-in-law. They did not answer the phone. I cannot tell you when I hung up because it was a hysterical scene. I was in a state of shock. Everyone was running around. And what seems to be forgotten is that my friend was lying there on the ground.
I don't
Oh.
think anybody's forgotten.
No, they haven't.
You, in fact, did not leave voicemails for any of those 3 calls, did you?
Again, I don't have my phone record in front of me.
And that's because Nicole didn't get any voicemails. The calls were answered, right?
The calls were not answered.
You agree with me that Brian and Nicole Albert, Brian Albert being a police officer, never came out of the house, right?
Correct. Neither did any neighbor.
I know you'd like to continue editorializing
Mhm.
after the fact. It's probably a time and a place for it. This isn't it. If you don't have a question, I'd ask you to do that. Did Brian Albert come
shit,
out of the
McCabe.
house?
No,
Did Nicole Albert come out of the house?
no.
Thank you.
Mm.
How many of the initial police officers from Canton Police Department who responded to the scene were you friends with?
I would say I am friendly with Mike Lank. He was 5 years older than me. I knew him growing up. If I saw him around town, I would say, "Hey, how are you?" Pretty much that's the extent.
Anybody else other than Mike Lank that you're friends with?
Proctor?
Not that I am friends with. I knew of Officer Sean Good, but I wouldn't say I was friends with him. I just knew who he was.
And you also knew that Officer Lank was very good friends with the Albert family.
Good friends, yes.
You knew that Mike Lank and Chris Albert had a long-standing friendship, correct?
Correct.
You just indicated you also knew Officer Good, is that right?
Didn't know him. I said I knew of him.
Okay. With regard to names like Sarah, Mulaney, not so much.
Sarif has a sister that's the same age as my sister, but I had never, to my knowledge, met Sarif.
And of all the officers who responded to the scene, the 2 who actually went inside the Albert home to talk to Brian Albert and others was, in fact, Mike Lank and Officer Good.
I don't remember Officer Good in the house. I only remember Officer Lank.
The reason you know that, the reason you have a memory of what was happening inside the house is because you were allowed to actually go into that home, correct?
Correct.
And you went into that home before any of the officers went into the home. Is that right?
Correct.
You were allowed to have private conversations with Brian Albert?
I woke Brian Albert up.
Were you allowed to have private conversations with Brian Albert?
Yes.
And you were allowed to have private conversations with your sister, Nicole?
Yes.
That was before the police ever went in to do any formal interviews of you, Brian, or Nicole, correct?
Which were
Correct.
never.
Did you
Done.
discuss in these private conversations how
Police.
you three were going to answer any questions for the police when you were asked?
No,
Did you
The
talk about
interviews
what
were
you
not
going to say in
conducted.
any respect?
we were in shock. There was
The
no,
police,
no,
Did you talk about
Station
what
at
Brian
all.
and Nicole were going to say in their interviews with the police?
no,
Did Brian Albert give you any advice as a police detective what you should do or say when you were interviewed?
no,
Did he give you any advice as a police detective what you should do with your cell phone?
no,
Did he tell you that the police might want to get a hold of your cell phone at some point?
no,
Did you two discuss the calls that you made to Nicole Albert at 6:07 and 6:08 and the call that you made to Brian Albert at 6:23?
no,
Did you ever discuss the idea of potentially deleting any of those calls that were made in that early morning?
absolutely not.
Would you tell us if you did?
Yes, because I'm an honest and truthful person.
Uh-huh.
Did you tell him which officers were outside?
I don't recall.
Did you tell him that Officer Lang, specifically, friend of the Alberts, was outside?
I don't recall.
And then your husband, Matt McCabe, arrived at the scene, correct?
Correct.
He was allowed to come in the house as well, right?
I believe Officer Lank was in the house before Matt came into the house.
And a little bit later that morning, Julie Albert came over, correct?
Correct.
And by the way, Officer Lank, after just a few minutes, then left the house, correct?
Correct.
Leaving all the witnesses inside together.
Correct.
And I can't remember if I asked this question or just thought it out loud. Did Julie Albert come over?
She did.
And then Chris came over.
Yes.
Even Brian Higgins came over.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Because
These
you
are all
called him.
friends and family of yours, correct?
Not Brian Higgins. I had only met a handful of times.
But you consider him a friend.
A friend of Brian Albert's is how I would reference him.
Fair enough.
But,
So these are
buddy.
friends and family of Brian Albert.
Correct.
And everyone was permitted to discuss the circumstances of the evening before, going into the early morning hours,
Mm-hmm.
with each other, with no police there, correct?
I sat with my family in shock and horror.
Uh-huh. You sounded like you're in
Were you
shock and
allowed to
horror when you're on the
discuss
phone.
the circumstances of the night before, going into the early morning hours, amongst yourselves, without any police presence? Yes or no?
There was no reason for us to be allowed or not allowed. We did nothing wrong.
Understand my question? Did you get it?
Yes, I understand your question.
Can you answer it, yes or no? Were you allowed, that group of folks,
Mhm.
were you allowed to discuss the case without a police presence?
Yes.
Okay. So you listened during that friends and family gathering, you listened to what Brian Albert had to say, correct?
He didn't really say much.
No, because he couldn't even be bothered going out his front door.
Again, you're creating a scene that didn't happen.
Anything, Ms. McCabe, I'm asking some questions that you don't seem to want to answer.
Objection, Your Honor.
All right, so let's ask a question and let's get an answer, okay?
Yes or no? Was Brian Albert there within earshot when you discussed your version of what had happened?
I didn't discuss much. I sat there in shock and horror, so I spoke very little, to be honest with you.
But what little you did speak, he could hear.
Yes.
And Nicole could hear.
Yes.
And Chris Albert could hear.
Chris came much later.
And your husband, Matt McCabe, he could hear.
Yes.
Okay. And then when Chris is talking about what happened at Waterfall, you could hear and Brian could hear. In other words, everybody could hear everybody.
Chris came much later. When Chris came, I was almost about to leave.
I'm guessing that the topic of what had happened was still on everybody's mind.
Everybody was trying to figure out what had happened.
And you're discussing it amongst yourselves. That's my point.
With my sister and my brother-in-law and my husband. Correct.
The same four people that
Before
were
you
on the
left,
group
you said you
message
were
with
about to
the
leave. Before you
Asian
left,
house.
Another Albert
Hmm.
came over to the house, correct?
I don't recall seeing him.
Him.
Kevin Albert.
How'd you know I was talking about Kevin Albert?
because you said another Albert came over, and I was
6 brothers.
told later it was Kevin.
I see. So you believe that Kevin was not there when you were still there?
I was in a state of shock. He may have walked
I'm
in.
asking, do you remember?
I don't remember it. No,
He could have been.
he could have been, absolutely.
And you knew he was a Canton police officer.
Yes,
You had already gotten a call from Michael Proctor, hadn't you?
yes,
He told you he wanted to speak with you.
correct,
So you knew at that point that the Massachusetts State Police troopers had taken over the investigation of the case, correct?
correct.
Did Michael Proctor tell you that the Canton Police Department had been recused from the case?
Objection.
Sustained.
Let me ask it a different way. Did you have knowledge in any way, shape, form, or fashion, at that point, that Canton Police Department was not supposed to be involved in the case?
Objection.
Sustained.
Speaking of Trooper Proctor, when you first interviewed with him, that was January 29th, 2022. We've already discussed that a little bit today, correct?
Correct.
And he was taking notes
Felix.
while you were interviewing with him. Is that right?
I believe so.
You mentioned on Friday your observations of the taillight that day. Is that right?
Correct.
You told Mr. Lally that you indicated that the taillight looked, when you saw it, just like the photograph that he showed you, correct?
I told him it was hard to make out and with the snow on it, but it looked, in the picture that he showed.
He showed you a second photo, a close-up,
Mhm.
basically, of the SUV and Sally Port.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yes,
And you said, yeah, that's the condition of the taillight, correct?
yes,
You also told Trooper Proctor about your observations of the taillight on that same day, the 29th, right?
correct,
That's literally the same day that you saw the
3
taillight,
cats at my feet.
correct?
correct,
Just a few hours later. Is that right?
correct.
And what you told Trooper Proctor that day was that you, quote, saw a crack in it, end quote, correct?
I told him that the taillight was cracked.
Matter of fact, the words that you used were that you saw, and I'm not fighting you on those words. You saw that it was cracked. You actually said, I saw a crack in it, correct?
That's what he said. I said, I'm telling you, I said the taillight was cracked.
So this is another example of him screwing up your words, correct?
You'd have to ask Trooper Proctor.
So I'm asking you, did you say,
Yeah.
I saw a crack in it?
I said the taillight was cracked.
So you didn't say, I saw a crack in it, right?
I said the taillight was cracked.
The photograph that you were shown, with the court's permission, it's Exhibit 92, I believe, from Friday.
Okay.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
You see that photograph? You were shown this photograph on Friday. Does that look like, does it like has a crack in it?
It's cracked. Yes.
It's actually completely missing.
Yeah. And I believe in one of the reports, one of the many reports, it will say that I said it was cracked and missing pieces.
Right. Does that look like it's cracked and missing pieces, or does that look like the entirety of the taillight is basically gone?
Again, in that picture, there are the red pieces. There are some of it still there. So it's cracked
That's
and
not
missing.
just
In
a
a
crack.
state of shock, that was my description.
Got it. So in a state of shock, you said there was a crack in it.
No,
Hours after,
I
You're a
said
crack up,
it
Jen.
was cracked. I never said there was a crack in it.
so if Trooper Proctor wrote that down, that would be an example of him getting your words wrong yet again,
Objection.
correct?
That's been answered. Let's move along, please.
That's okay for that. Thank you, Your Honor.
She's getting
I
shirty.
want to get back to
Yep,
January
that's the
29th,
dirty.
that interview with Trooper Proctor.
You are a liar. Your
After
pants
this
on fire.
interview with Michael Lank, you eventually made your way back to your house. Is that right?
Yes.
You went with your husband, Matt,
Yes.
and you knew that Trooper Proctor was going to show up and interview you and Matt, Mr. McCabe, correct?
On the phone, he wanted to speak with me.
Is that a yes?
So I wasn't aware. He asked to speak with me. I wasn't aware if he was going to speak with Matt.
Okay. you were at least aware that you were going to be interviewed.
Correct.
You told Brian Albert that
Informally,
Trooper Proctor
in your
was
own
planning on
home.
interviewing you as well.
Correct.
Before Trooper Proctor showed up to conduct that interview at your house,
Mhm.
Brian Albert actually showed up at your house, correct?
Correct.
So Brian Albert made sure that he was in your home before Trooper Proctor made it to your house, correct?
Objection.
Christine.
Brian Albert was in your home before Trooper Proctor was in your home. Is that right?
I am not sure who arrived first.
But he was there when you were interviewed, wasn't he?
He was upstairs, yes.
And you believe, of course, with that statement, he didn't hear anything about what was going to happen, right? He didn't hear
100
anything about the interview,
No, I don't think he could hear it from where he was.
but you knew he was just a few feet away.
I knew he was up in my bedroom.
We've talked a little bit about your call records, and I want to pivot for a second and ask you about those call records. This is Exhibit 90. Don't know, may I approach? Yes.
Thank you.
He's eating the flowers out of my dried flower arrangement.
Do you recognize that document?
I do, yes.
You were shown this document last week, is that right?
Correct.
This is a forensic extraction report of John O'Keefe's cell phone that you were shown on Friday, right?
Correct.
You acknowledge that it's an accurate report of calls found on John's phone between you and him. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and this shows the calls that you made to John's phone or you received from John's phone on or between or at or between 12:14 a.m. and 12:50 a.m. I want to direct your attention to those time frames, correct?
Correct.
All right, I want to start at the bottom, and it may go in reverse chronological order.
Okay.
I think it does. At 12:14, it shows that you called John O'Keefe and that call was answered. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
At 12:18 a.m., it shows that John O'Keefe called your phone and that was answered as well.
Correct.
And then at 12:29 a.m., you also called John O'Keefe's phone and y'all had a short conversation as well. Is that right?
No.
The record shows, I think it shows, pardon me, unknown, correct? In terms of whether it was missed or answered?
Excuse me, can you repeat that?
Sure, the 12:29, I want to concentrate on the 12:29 a.m. call.
Okay.
That one in the Celebrite extraction, it shows in terms of whether the call was answered or not, the status is unknown, correct? It's on the last page,
Yeah,
second row from the top.
at 12:29. Unknown, yes.
Unknown. However, you've already acknowledged that y'all did have a short conversation on that 2:29
No,
call, correct?
we didn't speak at 2:29. We spoke at 12:14 and we spoke at 12:18. We never spoke at 12:29.
So you're indicating that the 12:29 call was either missed or otherwise? Went to voicemail, something.
The 12:29, yes.
Okay. I want to show you a document. Well, let me ask it this way. According to this, there were 6 more calls between your phone and John O'Keefe's phone.
Correct.
Counting, correct? 1, 2, 3, 4,
Um,
5, 6. And that's before, or that's up to 12:50 a.m. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. I'd like to show you another document. I don't know if I could approach briefly. May I?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll take, so we don't get them mixed up, I'll take exhibit 90 back.
Okay. Thank you.
I want to show you one more document that you weren't shown on Friday. Do you recognize this one?
No.
Okay. If you look where it indicates on the left column, I'm just putting my thumb here, the
Okay.
left column, the MSISDN user, there's a number that ends there. 0142, sorry, 0142.
You want me to approach?
Yes.
So I'm going to answer this question before we approach.
I have no idea what we're approaching about this document.
Yes.
Why don't we just go up there?
Sure.
May I have that, please? I know you need to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think of Jen now? Hmm? She your bestie? Hmm. Not so sure. Do you think that might be probable doubt just there? Pick a winner. I don't recall, she said. The bags under his eyes are going to look like mine tomorrow. I think the guy in the second row with the beard is a reporter, or I'm sure I've seen him on a live stream before on YouTube. I'm sure I have. Wonder if Turtle Boy's there. I should be watching Emily D. Baker's stream and reacting to her reactions of all this evidence coming in. Go, Karen. You've waited a long time for this, to watch her squirm. And it's only just begun. Yeah, I don't think the defence made one objection throughout the whole direct examination on Friday. They just let her dig.
Your Honor, just for ease of maintenance, may I approach and handle
Yes.
this an unredacted version?
Yes.
Same thing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you look on the left column, Ms. McCabe,
Yes.
you'll see something that says Apple ID.
Yes.
Look to the right of it. Do you recognize that unredacted portion? I don't want you to read it out or anything. You recognize that?
Yes.
Whose Apple ID is that?
That's mine.
Okay, if you look 6 lines below that, there's a full phone number. Again, don't read the phone number out. Just tell me if you recognize it.
I do.
Whose is that?
That's mine.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'll take the unredacted copy back.
Okay.
So we don't get it mixed up. Does this appear to be Cellbrite extraction of your phone records, your Apple ID?
Yes.
Okay. And you recognize, without telling me what it is, you recognize that phone number as your phone number back at the time and the Apple ID back at the time?
Yes,
associated with the phone that you then turned in to law enforcement, correct?
correct.
Um, You've just looked at the extraction report for John O'Keefe's phone, and you saw those calls between your phone and John O'Keefe's phone after going from 12:14 after that all the way up to 12:50, correct?
Correct.
Take a look at the last couple of pages, page 3 and 4 of your own cell phone extraction report. And tell me if you see a single call listed between you and John O'Keefe for January 29th between 12:14 and 12:50.
There are calls to a number that I'm assuming is John.
What
I'm
time?
just not sure. I see a call. Wait a minute. This report has times everywhere.
Right. It's chronological except for the calls that were deleted. You
Oh,
see a call at 5:52 to John O'Keefe's phone.
I see a call at 5:52. Yes.
But there's not a single call before 5:52 a.m. between 12:14 and 12:50 a.m. Is that right? Not one.
sprung
It's
that.
very hard to. This report trumps time wise.
We can look at every single time on the report. There's not that many.
Yeah, because you deleted them all.
I'm just trying to say that it goes from 7:21 to 5:52 to 7:33 to 7:49. There's no order. They're out of order.
I understand that, Mr. McKay, but if you look at every one of the entries, there's not a single entry for 12:14, 12:18, or any of the subsequent 12:29, any of the subsequent phone calls that are all shown on John O'Keefe's phone extraction. Would you agree with that?
Correct.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
Blink
Your
right,
Honor,
blink
with the
right.
addition of NN as an exhibit.
Okay, is there an objection?
No, Your Honor.
So they can prove that she called his phone because they extracted the calls off his phone and it showed them, and
May
the
I
extraction of
inquire
her
about
phone
that?
showed
Fact of
that
the
she
matter is,
deleted
according
them.
to those Celebrite records and that extraction from your own phone, every one of the calls that you made to John O'Keefe's phone between 12:29 and, I'm sorry, between 12:14 and 12:50 a.m. was deleted and unrecovered, correct?
I didn't understand that report, and I'm not an expert.
When you compare the two,
Dodgy
you saw a bunch
McDodge.
of calls on John O'Keefe's phone, right? You know, he couldn't have deleted them.
No, he
Passed
couldn't.
away, right?
Correct.
They magically
You
disappeared.
saw your cell phone extraction, which is the handshake, John O'Keefe's phone, and all your calls are missing, right?
Objection.
Can you answer
what?
that question?
Mm.
I'm confused. That paper, I don't understand it. It was vague. There were numbers. There were calls everywhere. There was a number of missing calls.
There's a bunch of missing calls, right? You didn't see any
Yeah.
of the calls that were reflected on John O'Keefe's phone. Is that right? Yes or no? They're not there.
A lot of calls are missing. I'm not really even sure what's there because the numbers are it's all redacted.
So you were not seeing any redacted calls,
The page you just had in front of me was redacted.
It's now an exhibit.
It's now an exhibit. Your personal information was redacted. None of the calls were redacted now.
The numbers, I don't know people's phone numbers. I just have them as contacts.
Ms. McCabe, you just said a second ago, and we can do this all day long, or we can just make it simple. The fact of the matter is that report did not show any of the calls that John O'Keefe's phone report showed, correct? From 12:14 to 12:50.
I believe there was one on there.
5:52. That's the
Mhm.
next morning, ma'am. Right?
Were there other calls in that time period on the Celebrate?
You just said there weren't. You just looked at it.
I've told you that that Celebrate report was extremely hard to read.
Right.
Mhm.
Fact is, there are no calls on your own phone extraction between you and John O'Keefe between 12:14 and 12:50. Would you just agree with that, at least on that report?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
The fact is that you deleted your call records before you turned your phone in, didn't you, Ms. McKay? That's what that report shows.
Absolutely not.
You sanitized your phone because you
Sandra
didn't
did
want
it.
the police to know who you had been calling, or the fact that you had been calling John O'Keefe's phone incessantly, correct?
Incorrect. I willingly turned over my phone.
After you deleted your phone call logs, correct?
Absolutely not.
What date did you turn your phone over?
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Possibly February 3rd.
How many
Oh,
days after this incident was that?
yeah.
4, 5.
So
Four,
you had plenty of time
four.
to talk to that friends and family group and ultimately decide to delete your phone calls,
Mm.
correct?
Why would you do
Objection.
that?
Sustained.
Did you ever have any group chats with family members who are
Yep.
witnesses in this case?
Yes.
How many of those were deleted? Look at that anxiety.
May I approach you on it?
Yes.
Flip through those. While Mr. Lally is looking through that packet, can I just ask to make sure the record is clear? Did you delete any of your calls before you turned your phone into law enforcement?
I spoke with the 2 officers that I handed my phone over to, and I asked if I could delete the personal conversations with my daughters. And they said absolutely yes, that I could.
So other than calls with your daughters that you did you delete any other calls on your phone at all?
There were
Mr. Cade?
text messages. It was actually text messages with my daughters that I deleted, and that was all I deleted.
Did you delete any phone calls?
I do not recall deleting any phone calls at all. I would have no reason to delete anything.
So that's very different than I didn't delete any phone calls. I do not remember deleting phone calls. Means you might have.
In day-to-day life, people delete things, but I do not recall deleting any phone calls.
In day-to-day life, did you delete any of the calls to John O'Keefe?
No,
Did you delete any of your calls with Nicole Albert?
no,
Did you delete any of your calls with Brian Albert,
no,
with Chris Albert,
no,
with Julie Albert,
no,
Colin Albert,
no,
with any of the witnesses in this case? Did you delete any calls before you turned that phone over?
no, no.
Ah,
May I approach you?
Yes.
well, he wouldn't ask all those questions if he didn't have the answer, would he?
Ms. McCabe, I'm handing you a packet of documents. Appears to be about 10 pages long. Do you recognize what's in those documents?
Yes,
You indicated already that you were part of a group chat with certain members of your family and friends.
correct.
Did that group chat, I'm most interested in the group chat between yourself, Nicole Albert, Brian Albert, Matt McCabe, on or around that group chat starting on or around February 1st, 2022.
Okay.
Does that look like a true and accurate reflection of the text messages between, or certain of the text messages between and among that group?
Yes, the ones I've seen. Yes.
On February
Can you just
1st
tell me what page you're on? I'm sorry.
Of course, Your Honor.
The Bates stamp number?
2148.
Okay,
is where
thank
I'm
you.
going to start.
Thank you.
And they should go relatively chronologically, Your Honor, page by
Okay.
page. On February 1st, 2022, around 2:15 in the afternoon on this group chat, did you receive a message from your husband on the group? This is on page 2148. And it should be the middle bubble, the middle and the bottom bubble. Quote, Julie said channel 4 is in DE. You see that?
Yes.
And the response from Matt McCabe is eating, I assume, quote, ask Chris to ask some questions. Tell them the guy never went in the house, end quote. You see that?
Yes.
You look at the next page, the top,
Mhm.
149. There's a one-word answer from Brian Albert.
Exactly.
Mhm.
What is that answer?
Exactly.
Brian Albert.
Does it appear to you from this
Was it Brian or
chat
Chris?
that Matt McCabe was directing witnesses, specifically Chris Albert, what to say to the news media?
Objection.
I'll allow that. Is that what you're seeing?
Mm.
That is not how I would understand this.
Mm-hmm.
He never went in. Tell them he never went in the house was the story that had been concocted between and among this group of people on this chat. Correct?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
No. John never went in the house. It wasn't a story.
Mm-hmm.
It was the truth.
He never
And
got
it
out
is
the
the
car
truth.
either, according to you.
Just like she said, I hit him.
Correct.
Yeah.
So according to this chat, at least, at the very base level, this is one witness telling another witness to give certain information to the media that could be useful to the group, correct? Tell them the guy never went in the house, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Matt McCabe was directing Chris Albert. Chris Albert wasn't even at the house, was he?
Chris Albert was not at the house. No.
But this chat is Matt McCabe, your husband, telling Chris Albert, who was never at the house and would have no personal knowledge of what happened at the house, to specifically say, the guy never came in the house. The guy, by the way, being John O'Keefe,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's what he wrote.
Does that sound to you a little bit like collusion?
Objection.
Sustained.
Lawyer,
At some
pins
point,
on
you set
fire.
out
That was my best
Carrie Roberts'
Boston accent.
cell phone number shortly after the 29th, or maybe not, maybe on the 29th, correct?
Correct.
You didn't have her cell number in your phone?
No.
One of your primary concerns was to make sure that you got in contact with Carrie Roberts before the day's end, right?
I wanted to speak to Carrie as she was on her way to the hospital, and I wanted to check in on John.
One of your primary concerns, Ms. McCabe, was that you wanted to make sure you got a hold of Carrie Roberts and had communication with her before the end of the day.
It had nothing to do with getting in touch with her by the end of the day. It was a friend reaching out, wondering how her friend was doing, who was just taken off the front lawn.
On the 29th.
Yes.
So
Did
before
you
the
ring
end of the
Karen?
day, Ms. McCabe, you do this all day long. Before the end of the day, you were trying to get a hold of Carrie Roberts, correct?
Immediately in the morning, I wanted to get in touch with her.
Right. So you sought out her phone number. First, you tried my client, Karen Reed, correct?
Correct.
But then you found another source for that information. Is that right?
Correct.
Oh,
And
she's
you
pissed
said just
now.
a second ago, you were claiming that you needed that information because you knew that she was on the way to see John O'Keefe's parents,
She was picking them up.
and you wanted to check on them.
Correct.
You've been friends with the O'Keefe family for years, haven't you?
Correct.
So you didn't have a need to get Carrie Roberts' phone number, did you?
I wanted to speak with Carrie, see how she was doing. I was not going to call Peg.
You had her phone number, didn't you?
I do, yes.
So if you wanted to check on somebody, you could have just called her.
I was not going to call Peg O'Keefe on the way to see her son at the hospital.
Check on your friend? That was just too much?
I wanted to ask Carrie. I'm sure she was boggled down and probably did not want to speak with anyone.
But you
It
made
was
sure
a
you got
simple thing.
Carrie
I made sure I got Carrie Roberts' number so I could check in and see how John was doing. Also, we had just been through an extremely traumatic event together. There's nothing
You
evil
wanted
here.
Carrie Roberts' number, Ms. McKay.
Oh.
You wanted to make sure that you
To
could
use
control
the E word.
her story as she left your site, correct?
Absolutely not.
Did you take any steps whatsoever to influence Carrie Roberts' statements?
No.
Because that would be collusion, wouldn't it?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you write a text to the group, including Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, and Matt McCabe, where you informed them that, quote, and this is, Your Honor, on page 2158, where you informed them, quote, Carrie is here going over timeline, end quote.
Correct.
So you reported back to Brian, Nicole, and Matt that Carrie was where?
She came over my house.
And you two sat down and went over a, quote, timeline together.
Mm-hmm.
Peggy spoke to Carrie.
Yes or no? I didn't ask about Peggy.
Well, that's where the timeline started at.
Did you ask Carrie, or did Carrie show up at your house and, quote unquote, go over a timeline?
Carrie showed up asking to sit down with me to do a timeline so we would remember everything that
no,
had
Jim?
happened.
And you wanted to be super helpful about that, right?
Objection, Your Honor.
Look how red her neck's
Also
gone.
differently.
Sure. You wanted to be helpful to Carrie Roberts.
The two of us were trying to figure out what had happened to our friend.
And so you made sure that you created and drafted with Carrie Roberts a timeline, correct?
I didn't make sure of anything. She was the one that asked me to do it.
And not only did you create a timeline, you then reported back to your group, Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Matt McCabe, that she was creating this timeline with you on February 1st, 2022. Isn't that right?
Yes.
After you created or drafted this timeline with Carrie, she actually sat for an interview with the police, did she not? That's not in the chats. I'm just asking. She sat down for an interview with the police, didn't she?
When?
You tell me. That's my question.
I'm not sure of when you're talking about.
Okay, let's start over.
Yes.
After this timeline was created on February 1st,
Mhm.
at some point thereafter, Carrie Roberts conducted a formal interview with the police about this case, correct?
Do you have the report of that date?
We're sort of bearing the lead. She did the interview in your living room, ma'am, right?
There was
Uh,
on
I
Tuesday,
remember now.
2 officers came to the house and she sat in the other room and spoke with them.
So, using my question, she did the interview at your house.
Oh,
correct?
they came to my house to interview me and she happened to be there. So they asked if they could speak with her also.
Okay. Did she or did she not do an interview at your house?
Did, yes.
That wasn't that hard.
No. Fancy that.
You were present for that interview, weren't you?
I was eating dinner.
You were present for the interview, Ms. McCabe,
I was in the house, yes.
and you listened to that interview, didn't you?
No, I did not.
You made sure you gave Carrie Roberts everything she needed for that interview, correct? Quote, everything she might need for that interview, didn't you?
And where is this that you're quoting
I was
from?
asking you.
Oh, I'm sorry. When you quoted, I thought it was in here. I apologize.
We'll get to it in a second.
Mm-hmm.
Did you tell her everything that you wanted her to say?
No, I did not.
Did you in any way attempt to influence her testimony before she gave that interview in your
No,
living
I
room?
did not.
Absolutely not. Carrie is her own person.
Mhm.
But then you
I
did
did
report
not.
her progress to the Albert and McCabe group in that group chat, didn't you?
Can you show me where, please?
Sure. Isn't it true that in a group text with Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Matt McCabe, you wrote, and this is on page 2159, quote, and we handed Carrie, sorry, and handed phone to Carrie. Remember that?
I see that, yes.
And the very next text is from you telling the group she's telling him everything in all caps, 2 exclamation points.
Yes.
And then you went on to say at 2:55 p.m. at basically the same moment, quote, all the stuff, end quote, correct?
Correct.
So when you said a couple of minutes ago that you weren't listening to what she was saying, that was a lie, wasn't it?
We're talking about 2 different interviews. I'm talking about when
Oh,
the
no.
officers came to my house and spoke to her there. You're saying that I handed the phone over, so that would be a different interview.
No.
This is on February 1st at 2:55. I wasn't there. You were there. She was in your house on February
You were
1st.
eating
interviewing
dinner,
the
you
police,
said.
wasn't she?
One day she was there giving an interview to the police.
And while she was there,
But I do not believe it was at 2:55. It was later in the evening. So I think you might have 2 events confused.
so either way, whether she was on the phone with the police or sitting there in your living room with the police, you were listening to her and reporting back to the group. She's telling them everything.
No, it's not correct. The one that she did with the police, she did in the other room. And the one she did on the phone, I said, she's telling them everything.
I know.
Because
I know.
Carrie is an extremely blunt person and she was giving personal feelings about the situation. And I was horrified by it.
To the police.
To the police.
And you're listening.
I heard a statement she said that horrified me.
And then you're reporting it back to the group, weren't you?
That one thing she stated, I reported back to
say?
the group. Yes.
So you're listening in on a police interview, correct? One
It was a
side-
phone call.
One side of it, right?
It was a phone call.
You're listening in on a police interview, one side of it, correct?
Correct.
You're eavesdropping on that interview, correct?
I'm sitting with her and she's taking the call.
And then you're reporting that interview back, or her success in that interview, in your mind, back to the group involving Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, and Matt McCabe. Isn't that what you're doing?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
I absolutely not. That is not how it went. I was horrified because Carrie's a blunt person, not like me. And she had made a comment about Miss Reed and Mr. O'Keefe's relationship. And I was shocked and horrified that she said it the way that she did.
You're so shocked and horrified that
I said, oh my God, she's telling them everything. Yes.
you decided it was so important that you needed to report that back to Brian Albert and his friends. His family.
I was horrified.
So you reported that back.
Yes, I said she told them everything.
When you were first confronted with these messages at a separate proceeding in June of 2023, you claimed that you couldn't remember what that exchange was about, correct?
Correct.
And now you just all of a sudden have this newfound memory of exactly what that text message was referring to, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Yes, because Carrie Roberts said a statement and it jogged. I said, oh my God, that's what I meant when I said she said everything.
When did she say this
Mhm.
statement?
Probably in the fall. She has made this statement a few times in reference to Karen.
You and Carrie Roberts are still coordinating your statements together.
Oh, no, we're not. It's just an opinion she has of Miss Reed.
And all of a sudden that became your, quote, everything, all this stuff.
It didn't just become it. I forgot that I had written it. And one day Carrie made the statement, and I'm sure it happens to everyone. You forget something and then you're like, oh my God, that's what it was.
I'm not sure that happens to everyone.
Objection.
Sustained.
Let me ask you a different question. When you were asked under oath,
Mhm.
a year ago,
Mhm.
when things were fresher in your mind, you were asked specifically what you were referring to, and your answer was, I have no idea, correct?
Correct.
Because you didn't want to tell them that you had coordinated your statement with Carrie Roberts. Isn't that right?
No, that is not right. I did not remember what it was.
Went on to be asked specifically,
You were horrified.
do you know who you were referring to? And you said, maybe Carrie, maybe. I'm talking to Carrie. And the question was, but you don't recall this text? And your answer was, I don't remember. That's what you testified to a year ago, correct?
Correct.
But now you're talking about some memory of a disparaging comment that Carrie Roberts has about my client. And that's the everything in your mind.
Yes, the things that she was saying.
Quite obviously, what you were referring to in that text in real time, Ms. McCabe, was that Carrie Roberts was telling the police, quote, everything that you had laid out for her in this timeline meeting you had.
Objection.
Correct?
Objection.
So it's sustained as to that form. You can ask that question in a proper way.
The everything you referred to in that text in real time was what you had worked out with Carrie in that timeline meeting, wasn't it? That was the everything you were referring to, correct?
Incorrect. We never worked together to come up with the story. We have the facts, and the everything was a comment about your client.
You went on
Oh.
in your group chat with Brian Albert, Nicole
Not
Albert, and Matt McCabe
my
to give
friend.
running updates about whether or not Carrie Roberts was actually following the script, correct?
Incorrect. There was no script.
167. Matt McCabe texted the group, Brian, comma, sitting separate, end quote, correct?
Yes.
Sounds like Matt McCabe is reporting back to Brian Albert, following your instructions, we're sitting separate.
Objection.
Sustained.
One minute later, Brian Albert had a one-word response to the Brian sitting separate, correct?
Yes.
What was that one-word response?
Okay.
So it sounded like he was giving his approval for where people were situated in that meeting, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
At page 2168, 515.
It's very hard to just look at two texts and try to understand what the context is.
Ms. McCabe, if you don't understand a question that I have, just let me know, but otherwise let me ask a question. 21, I'm sorry, on page
Blink right, blink right.
2168, at 515, you wrote in the group, quote, you listening, correct?
Yes.
And at the same time, 515, you then wrote, cops here again, end quote, correct?
Correct.
That was in reference to the police coming over to your house to further interview Carrie Roberts, wasn't it?
That was when they came to talk to me.
And Carrie Roberts was there,
Was
correct?
at my house, correct?
And a few minutes later at 5:23, Nicole Albert texts, call us after, correct?
Correct.
And a few minutes after that, Matt McCabe texts, quote, this girl could write a book, ... nonstop, correct?
Correct.
So obviously Matt McCabe, along with you, was listening to Carrie Roberts in her interview.
We were sitting in the kitchen eating dinner with our children, and Carrie Roberts was in a different room, but she was going on and on and on
How do you
as
know?
she does
How do you know?
because they were in the other room.
And you could listen.
I could hear voices.
You could hear her interview with the police.
Did not hear her interview. I could hear them talking, but I was sitting at a table with my children eating dinner, getting ready to go to a basketball game.
You then responded to Matt McCabe, I love it.
Yes.
And then you responded about this interview you just testified under oath and under penalty of perjury not hearing anything about, just hearing voices, your next text was, quote, she is telling them everything,
Yes.
end quote. Correct?
Yes.
So what you said just a few minutes ago about not knowing what she was saying, I could just hear voices, that was a lie.
It was.
Okay.
Objection.
Sustained.
And a couple of seconds later, Nicole Albert responds, one word. What was her response?
Good.
So in order, those texts say, you listening? You say, you listening?
Objection, Your Honor.
The objection sustained.
At the end of the day, you were eavesdropping on an
Oh.
interview. Your
Oh,
doctor
yes,
had
she is,
gone
Gabby.
in their official fashion.
Very snacky.
No, I was sitting eating dinner, and some of the things, obviously, I overheard, but I was
She's
not
one of the
eavesdropping.
things you overheard.
I'm saying there's a possibility if I'm sitting in this room eating dinner and someone's in another room talking, you can hear bits and pieces. Was I eavesdropping? No. Is there some big cover up story? No.
Well, why does
Oh,
does
really?
your story, does your testimony keep evolving? A second ago,
Ah.
you said, you told this jury, you said, I couldn't hear a thing. All I could hear was voices, like muffled voices from the other room. She was going on and on about something.
Yeah.
And then when I confronted you with the text message where you said, she's telling them everything, now it's, well, I may have heard a couple of things. Which is it?
No, she was going on and on and on like she does.
And you were listening on and on and on like you
Mm.
do.
I was probably hearing bits and pieces.
Why was it
I
so
think she's on
important
her
to report
fourth pair
back
of
to the
knickers.
group that you were happy that Carrie Roberts was saying, quote, everything?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Ah. Yeah, you lick those lips because chapsticks do a different
We
thing
had
when
both
you're in
lost
prison.
our friend. Carrie Roberts was in shock, as was I in shock. The two of us had all this information that just kept coming back to us and back to us. And
Redirect.
it's terrifying
Answer
when
the
you
question,
go through an
lady.
experience and you're in shock. And Carrie was remembering things. I was remembering things. So I was happy for her that she was piecing it all together, and I had pieced it all together, because at the end of the day, our friend was dead and we were trying to figure out what had happened to him together. There was no direction. We were all trying to figure out what had happened, because that's what you do when you lose somebody you love.
Were you happy
Oh,
for her, or were you happy for you?
you haven't shed a tear
and
this
Brian
whole testimony.
And Matt and Nicole.
For me and for her, because we were going through this together. There was no
You
conversation.
got the story out that you're trying to get out from Carrie Roberts. right?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
There is no story. There's facts and truth on this side. There's no story. The
Rubbish.
story that you've created is not the truth.
Did I create, I hit him, or did you?
That's fact.
A fact
Did
that
he
you're
delete the
reading when
text
you didn't
messages
mention
and the phone
in the
calls?
report. To Lank, doctor, grand jury, nothing, right? That kind of fact.
Objection.
Is that right?
That is the fact I mentioned. So in some reports, it's there.
The fact is, you wanted to keep very close tabs on Carrie Roberts,
Mm.
didn't you?
No.
Yes.
On January 29th, if you look on page 2223,
The song comes to
texts the
mind
group,
here. Cold
quote,
heart, bitch.
Carrie talked to cops and kept it simple, end quote.
Yes.
Okay, it's becoming a habit for you to keep tabs on Carrie Roberts, isn't it? in these texts?
Objection.
Sustained.
She ain't
You
happy.
agree that over and over and over and over again, you're reporting to this tight group, Nicole, Brian Albert, your husband, how Carrie's doing in her stories to the police. aren't you? Over and over and over.
I am telling them what is going on. I wouldn't say it. Well, let's count them. Was
Oh,
there 4
well,
of
let's
them?
count
You're saying over and over and over and over. It's a bit extreme.
I see. So you take issue with the way that I phrased over and over and over.
Well, it's misleading, I believe.
I see. Okay.
Oh.
Well, let me see if I can try this in a non-misleading way. So at least one of us. I'll withdraw. You consistently reported back to the group how Carrie Roberts was doing with the police, didn't you?
I would update them after Kerry saw
Now
and
look at the
spoke to the
jury.
police. Again, we were all trying to figure out what had happened to John.
They ain't
There's
going to
yet
help you.
another text from Brian's wife, Nicole, on January 29th, and this is on page 2226. And she says, quote, "We'll get more info tomorrow. Don't want to text about it," end quote.
Uh-huh.
And then you texted, right, correct?
Correct.
What's that about?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
We decided that we would talk on the phone. My children look on my phone. Her children look on her phone. We were working with the police. I was sharing information and everything that had happened. We didn't want it to leave our little circle because we were trying to figure out what happened, and we're not going to go running around letting people see, oh my gosh, they think this might have happened or that might have happened. It was nothing more than let's not text about it.
So you wanted to keep it, in your words, in your little circle.
Hide the evidence.
Correct. I didn't want it all out there what we had thought had happened. I was going to let the police do their job.
So by
were you?
definition, the info that Nicole Albert was talking about, that needed to be kept very tight, very secret, correct?
We needed the police to do their job. So we weren't going.
Texts, and Nicole wanted her texts, and the group wanted their texts to be kept secret and private. Isn't that right?
Not secret and private. We just weren't going to communicate certain things over text.
Did you give,
Because it's a
or did
record.
anybody give you any private information the next day on January 30th?
Uh-huh.
Didn't even give me private information.
So let me put it in context. That text from Nicole Albert, we'll get more info tomorrow. I don't want to text about it. That was on the 29th, right?
Okay.
You saw it. Did you get additional info on the 30th, the next day?
I have no idea.
Well, of
Did
course you
anything
don't.
significant happen on January 30th in connection with this case? Any meetings, any get-togethers, anything that you can think of?
I went to the O'Keefe's house.
Other than that, anything else?
On the way
don't-
home, Kerry Roberts' daughter is good friends with Michael Lank. So we dropped her off at Michael Lank's house, and Mike's wife came out of the house. Him and Kerry are friends, and she, jumped in the car and was consoling Kerry and asks how the O'Keefes were doing. And, we talked to her.
So you pulled up to Michael Lank's house on the 30th. That's never been reported, has it?
I guess I never thought much of it.
Never thought about reporting the fact that one of the first responding officers on the case, working for Canton PD, which is conflicted off the case, you had a meeting with that was unreported the next day?
I didn't meet with Michael
Conflict of
Lank.
interest
So
much?
you pulled up in the car. Tell me about that again. You pulled up in the car and what happened?
And Lex, her daughter, went into the house.
Okay. And then you just drove away?
No, Michael's wife came out of the house.
Okay. And y'all had a conversation about what?
She got in the car and her and Kerry are friends, and she was checking on Kerry and, just saying, oh my God, this is so crazy, just checking in on the O'Keefes.
How long did that take?
Well, Kerry's a talker, so could have been an hour.
Could have been hours standing outside,
Sitting in the car.
sitting in the car on February 30th. Never came in the house?
Not February 30th.
I said February 30th.
January
January
30th.
30th. Never went in the house?
I might have ran in to go to the bathroom.
It's the back end of a blizzard. It's freezing cold outside.
Mhm.
You're sitting in the car for an hour.
The car was running, Kerry, and they were talking.
But you didn't want
It's her
anyone.
friend.
Did you have any conversations
full of
before your
shit.
testimony today with anybody about you going to Michael Lang's house on January 30th? Anybody?
Yes,
Tell me about that. Who was it and when?
it was a couple of weeks ago at the DA's office.
The DA's office had an interview with you, correct?
Not an interview. They just explained this process.
I mean, a conversation. How about that?
Yes.
You met with folks at the DA's office. Who'd you meet with?
Mr. Lally, Miss McLaughlin, Steve Nelson, Trooper Brian Tully. I believe, and another woman. I can't remember her name, unfortunately.
Someone from the DA's office?
Yes.
Beelan?
No.
Lynn Beelan?
No, she's here today. She works with Steve Nelson.
But an employee of the DA's office.
Yes.
That sounds like a pretty big meeting.
I wouldn't call it a big meeting. There was, 5 of them?
How long did you, 5 of them and then you, right?
My daughter Allie came with me also.
The meeting's getting bigger. Anybody else?
No, we both went.
How do I do that?
Allie in the room when you were,
I don't know how to do that, Gabby. I'm a
I
newbie.
say interviewed, but you take issue with every word I use. When you were talked to by the DA?
Allie and I were both in the room when they went over everything, how this all works, because this is all brand new to us. And then they asked me to leave the room.
How can it be brand new to you when your brother-in-law was a Boston retired police officer? Really?
You were about to say, and I lost the end of that sentence, when they received what?
I didn't mean the word received.
Did you receive anything?
No, I looked at my grand jury notes.
Now, at this meeting, was anybody taking notes?
No.
You have a bunch of lawyers and DAs, and nobody has a notepad in front of them? Like notes?
I believe Mr. Lally had a number of folders on the table.
You?
Taking notes in those?
I know. I
bless,
do
thank
not believe
you.
anyone was
That's
taking
lovely.
notes. It was a casual meeting
Thank
to
you.
explain this process.
Was that meeting recorded in any way that you're aware of?
No.
How long did the meeting last?
Allie and I were probably in the room, I don't know, approximately 20 minutes. Then I left and they spoke with her. And then I went back in and they spoke with me.
How long did they speak with you?
Honestly, maybe half hour.
And during that half hour to an hour, did they go over with you what they expected your testimony to be?
They never spoke about what they expected my testimony to be. They just showed me some pictures that might be shown. I listened to the 911,
What pictures?
just of the house and how I'd be asked to, show, okay, we're going to put a picture of the house and you'll have a laser.
Okay, when we started this conversation, it was because you said, in answer to my question, was anything ever brought up to you about this meeting at Lank's house?
Mhm.
You said yes.
Mhm.
So obviously they did talk to you about your testimony. It wasn't just about the process, correct?
I asked what discovery had been turned in regard to me.
So you wanted to prepare to make sure that you knew what you might be asked on cross-examination, correct?
I wanted to know what was coming. Yes.
And you knew that one of the things was coming.
Why would you
after
be worried
this-
about
well,
that?
Let me ask
Got
you,
nothing to hide.
during this meeting, did Mr. Lally tell you one of the things that's gonna be coming is you had an off-the-books meeting at Lank's house for 45 minutes? Did he tell you that?
No, that's not how I was told.
Did he tell you that the defense had uncovered a report that established that you were actually at Michael Lank's house for 45 minutes that had never been reported to the defense or the prosecution before the phone extraction had been done. Did he tell you that?
I was asked, oh, were you at Michael Lank's on the 30th?
So you've had a lot of time to come up with a story
Mhm.
about why you were at Michael Lank's, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
I didn't need time to make up a story because I have the truth of why we went.
Mhm.
And the truth, according to you, is you pulled up at Michael Lank's house. The first responding officer and friends of the Alberts had a meeting with him the next day that was never reported to anybody for any purpose. You just met with his wife out in the car while the car was running for 45 minutes to an hour. That's your story.
It's not a story. It's the truth. Carrie dropped her daughter off.
You wouldn't
The
know the
wife
truth
came
if
out.
Alexis backed
Carrie
into
is
you,
a
lady.
talker. They started talking. A tragedy had happened the day before.
Mm.
It is interesting, would you not agree, that the day before you had this off-the-books meeting at Michael Lank's house, Nicole Albert says, we'll get more info tomorrow, meaning the very day you show up at Lank's house.
Ah.
Again, I never spoke with Mike Lank at his house. It was not an off the books meeting. It was Carrie dropping her daughter at one of her good friend's
Don't look
house,
at the
whose
jury.
husband happens to be a Canton cop. That is what it is. That is the truth.
A lot of coincidences.
Mm.
Objection.
Sustained.
Oh, she's not happy.
Yes.
She's not happy at all. Absolutely, Gabby. Absolutely.
That's, by the way, what did Mr. Lally show you in respect
Yeah, I'd like to
this
see
issue
Karen's
about
reaction
this
to
meeting at Michael
these
Lank's house?
questions.
He showed me nothing.
He just told you about it.
Brian Tully told me.
Okay, what did Mr. Tully tell you? Trooper Tully, what exactly did he tell you at this meeting about this Michael Lank issue?
He said, did you go to Michael Lank's on January 30th? And at first I said, no, I've never been to his house. And then I thought about it and I said, oh my gosh, yes, I did go there.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that was the
I
extent of the
remembered again.
conversation.
You said, yeah, I did go there, and he didn't ask a follow-up, like, what the heck were you doing at Michael Lank's house the day after this issue?
Objection.
Incident.
She hasn't
Allow it.
shed one
He didn't ask a
tear.
follow-up like
She's
that?
been in
I do not
such
believe he
shock.
did.
So Trooper
Poor
Tully,
love.
had you come down for an interview, he confronted you with a fact. that
Look
had
how
never
red
been
her neck
disclosed
is though
before.
when it pans
To
back.
wit, you showed up at Michael Lank's house, and when you said, yeah,
She's
oh, yeah,
seething.
I think your words were, oh my gosh, yeah, I think I did go there. And he didn't ask a follow-up question?
He was there.
Look at Karen's
You're-
face. Mm,
You're
yeah.
spinning all of this.
Explain away that.
Ma'am, I do a lot of things.
Yeah.
I don't spin. There's a judge here to make sure that I don't spin. I'm asking you a question. It's very direct.
I do not believe he asked me a follow-up question.
So that was the end of that conversation about Michael Lank, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Lally didn't have any follow-up questions.
I don't believe Mr. Lally was in the room.
Who else? I thought you said Mr. Lally, Mr.
It's
Flop.
3
They
a.m.
were.
in the
They might not have
morning
been in the
and there's
room at
not
that
a chance
time.
in hell I'm going to
So
bed.
Mr. Lally just happened to, what, just saunter out?
It was a different time.
So Mr. Lally was in and out of the conversation?
Mr. Lally was not there when this conversation happened
Well, why is that?
because I met with Brian Tully and he was not there.
Is Brian Tully taking notes?
No,
He's a state trooper interviewing a witness, and
He was-
notebook in front of him?
Objection.
Sustained.
The same report
I'd love
that
to
has
see the
you
behaviour
at
panel analyse
Michael Lank's
her
house
body language.
also has you picking up Nicole Albert. going by
They
the-
must be
going to
stopping for
34
lunch
Fairview
soon then.
Just before you went to Michael Lank's house. You aware of that?
We did not pick up Nicole Albert.
So you went by 34 Fairview, then diverted, and right after you went by 34 Fairview, went directly over to Michael Lang's house. What was the reason that you stopped by 34 Fairview first?
We didn't stop by. Maybe Carrie slowed down, but we did not stop by 34.
So you drove by, did a drive-by 34 Fairview. For giggles? What?
No, that's how we get to Michael Lang's house.
If the report shows that you actually stopped at 34 Fairview and then went to Michael Lang's house, would we have another oh my gosh moment?
Nope, no oh my gosh moment. We did not pick up Nicole Albert.
Did anybody else go with you over to Michael Lang's house?
No, it was Carrie, myself, and her daughter.
Your Honor, maybe approach briefly.
Okay.
I wonder if they've got her GPS data. Thanks, Gabby. It was lovely to have you. Thank you very much. You all have a good day. Well, I hope Karen's got a massive smile on her face, or at least a smirk of some sort, because she has earned it. She's waited a long, long time for this. Long, long time.
Jurors, we're going to try and go right up to 1 o'clock, okay?
Ms. McCabe, we've talked in some detail about your calls with John O'Keefe on the morning of January 29th. Do you recall that
Yes.
conversation? I want to focus your attention on or about, or at or about 12:14 a.m., moving up to about 12:50 a.m. You have that time in mind?
Yes,
You've seen the Celebrite extraction from John O'Keefe's phone, which Mr. Lally showed you the other day, correct?
correct.
And you went through the series of phone calls that were made and that appear on his extraction report, correct?
Correct.
I just want to run through those time-wise very quickly, just to orient you, if I can, and then I'll ask you some specific questions about it. There was a call at 12:14 a.m., correct?
Correct.
That was a call that you indicated was answered. You had a conversation with Mr. O'Keefe.
Correct.
There was a call at 12:18 and 47 seconds. That call also was answered by you. John O'Keefe made that phone call, correct?
Correct.
Then there's the 12:29 and 44 second call that you indicated was not answered.
Correct.
And that was a call to you, from you to him.
Correct.
There was a 12:41 call from you to John O'Keefe, correct? That was,
Correct.
there was a 12:41 and 54 second call from you to him. Is that right?
Correct.
There was a 12:43 and 19 second call from you to him.
Correct.
12:46 a.m. and 16 seconds from you to him.
Correct.
12:47 and 52 seconds from you to him.
Correct.
And 12:50 and 37 seconds from you to him, correct?
Correct.
You saw in his extraction report that all of those calls after 12:18 were missed calls, correct?
In his report that you showed me?
Correct. In other words, the only two calls that were answered were the 12:14 and 12:18. Everything else was a missed call.
I believe so. I would have to refer to it again because I've seen so many reports.
And Ms. McCabe, according to the extraction reports that you've seen this morning, comparing yours to his, every single one of those calls was deleted off your phone, correct? According to the reports.
According to that report, yes.
Let me ask you another question. Have you ever misplaced your phone?
Yes.
Just in life, everybody does it, right?
Yes.
What's one of the first things you do if you're with your daughter or your husband or a friend and you're in your house and you misplace your phone? What do you do?
Oh, I'll ask them to call my phone.
Even over and over and over, right?
Correct.
Could be as many as 5, 6, 7 times.
They were looking for John's
Usually I hear
phone.
it the first or second time.
You're looking for a buzz or a ring, isn't that right?
Correct.
And you might do that if you're searching for a missing phone, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
With regard to the calls that were deleted from your phone, you were asked about this under oath at another proceeding, weren't you?
Correct.
And you claimed at another proceeding that you had an explanation for all these missed calls starting at 12:29, 12:41, 12:41, 12:43, 12:46, 12:47, 12:50.
Mhm.
You have an explanation for that, right?
Can I see the report?
I'm asking you about your prior testimony.
And I'm asking,
About these calls,
yes, I'm asking, can I see it, please?
I'm asking you a different question. At this other proceeding, which you were under oath,
Yes.
you explained that these calls were what? These missed calls, incessant missed calls. What were they? You used a word. Matter of fact, 2 words.
I believe I used the word butt dials.
You claimed that every one
5
of
or
these
6
calls
times.
was a butt dial. Is that right?
Yes.
They
So
seem to do a
according
lot
to
of
you,
those.
you literally butt dialed John O'Keefe's phone 6 times in the span of 19 minutes. Is that right?
I don't remember making any of those calls. So my assumption is I put my phone in my back pocket
Don't remember deleting them either.
and that was it.
When you dial someone by mistake, you hit a button, set your phone down, the phone has to be open. You'll agree with that, right?
Correct.
Can't be locked. Because it takes several
it doesn't
iterations
just
of
hang up
movement
after
to get
10
the phone
seconds.
open. Face ID or password, right?
Correct.
So when you hit the button by mistake, walk away, that's a butt dial.
It would go to their voicemail.
What happens with the call?
I assume it goes to voicemail.
It's a good assumption because that's exactly what it does, isn't it?
Ah,
You've had a phone for a lot of years.
and it would make
Yes.
a 4
It
minute
rings and rings and
recording.
rings until it goes to voicemail.
Correct.
So in order to
Nice
hang up that
Up,
butt dial,
Jackson.
you have to interact with that phone yet again, don't you?
Yes.
So if you had 6 butt dials, 7, I think it's 7,
It'd be
Butt
6
dial.
voicemail messages.
you not only have to interact with the phone once to butt dial John, you then have to interact with it every single time to turn off that phone ringer so it doesn't go to voicemail, wouldn't you?
I suppose.
Which makes 14 interfaces with that phone over the course of 19 minutes. Is that right?
I mean, I guess I don't have it all right in front of me, but there were also text messages I was sending. So again, maybe I said, oh, shoot, I called them and then I turned it off.
You're so full of
But your
shit,
claim is
lady.
you don't remember those incessant butt dials and those incessant hangups at all, correct?
I honestly don't.
So you would have had to forget that you interacted with, by the way, you'll agree that the phone extraction shows that John O'Keefe got no voicemails from you, right?
I didn't look, but
So that means you would have had to interact with that phone 14 times over the course of 19 minutes at the exact time frame that the Commonwealth suggests John O'Keefe lost his life.
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask that differently, and this will be your last question for today, please.
Yes, Your Honor. The period between 12:29 and 12:50, which is the exact period that you were, quote, butt dialing John multiple times, that's also the exact period that John O'Keefe was rendered incapacitated. Isn't that right?
Objection.
That's sustained. We'll start up again tomorrow, okay?
Thank you.
All
What?
right, folks, I'm going to want to stay there and walk out.
Is it a half day?
thank you.
All right, so jurors, please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent
Okay.
research or investigation into the case. If you
I'm gonna have to get
happen
on
hear
to-
or read anything about the case, please disregard it. Now, tomorrow will be a full day. The forecast is going to be very hot. You'll see this courtroom fluctuates. It could be really cold. potted here. So maybe bring us.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
There is closing and leaving your notebooks if you would all rise. All
Yeah, go get him, Gail. Go get him.
Mr. Jackson, I don't know if this is yours.
May I approach?
Okay.
Are we going to be able to hear this sidebar?
May be seated.
Mr. Lally, who else might you have tomorrow?
So Ms. Roberts would be next.
Harry Roberts.
Laura Sullivan, Marietta Sullivan, and then I think it would be Mr. Higgins after that.
Okay. All right. It's not likely we'll get through all of those, correct?
Probably not.
Okay.
No,
All right. Thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow.
rise for the court, please.
I have to get on to watch Emily Baker because I want to see her reaction to all this evidence that has come out now. So let me find her there. And share screen. Okay.
I
Let's react
believe,
to
and another woman, I can't
ADB's
remember her name,
reaction.
unfortunately.
Someone from the DA's office?
Yes.
You told the DAs this for the first time?
Beelan?
No,
Lynn Beelan?
no, she's here today. She works with Steve Nelson.
But an employee of the DA's office.
Yes,
That sounds like a pretty
Oh,
big
they're
meeting.
way behind.
I mean, everybody was there.
I wouldn't call it a big meeting. There was, what, 5 of them?
How long did you, 5 of them and then you?
My daughter Allie came with me also.
Did the meetings
Is
getting
he
bigger?
laughing?
Anybody else?
No,
It's
we
kinda
both went.
off-putting.
Was Ally in the room when you were, I'm gonna say interviewed, but you take issue with every word I use. When you were talked to by the DA?
Allie and I were both in the room when they went over every.
Just to clarify, the other DA's last name is McLaughlin. It seems that there's no relation, but that is the other DA that is at the table with Lally, who the judge says good morning to every morning, who seems to be running the tech. But it seems that there is no relation. And if there is, it hasn't been brought up or made much of it. It's not the world's most uncommon last name, but not McLaughlin, the paramedic, McLaughlin, the DA that sits next to Lally.
everything, how this all works, because this is all brand new to us. And then they asked me to leave the room.
It's not that brand new. You've been through 2 grand juries. Okay. I don't know who she's looking at.
You were about to say, and I lost the end of that sentence, when they received what?
I didn't mean the word received.
Did you receive anything?
I looked at my grand jury notes.
Now,
I heard the received. It just kind of
is
dropped.
anybody taking notes?
No.
You have a bunch of lawyers and DAs and nobody has a notepad in front of them, like notes?
I believe Mr. Lally had a number of folders on the table.
You taking notes in any of those?
I do not believe anyone was taking notes. It was a casual meeting to explain this process.
Was that meeting recorded in any way that you're aware of?
No.
How long did the meeting last?
Allie and I were
Well,
probably in the
welcome.
room, I don't know, approximately 20 minutes. Then I left and they spoke with her. And then I went back in and they spoke with me.
How long did they speak with you?
Honestly, maybe half hour.
And during that
I-
half hour to an hour, did they go over with you what they expected your testimony to be?
They never spoke about what they expected my testimony to be. They just showed me some pictures that might be shown. I listened to the 911,
What pictures?
just of the house and how I'd be asked to, show, okay, we're going to put a picture of the house and you'll have a laser.
Because when we
You think
started
you're
this
so smart,
conversation,
lady.
it was because you said, in answer to my question, was anything ever brought up to you about this meeting at Lank's house?
And you said you told the
said
DAs.
yes. So obviously they did talk to you about your testimony. It wasn't just about the process, correct?
Right.
I was told, I asked what discovery had been turned in regard.
I watched the trial, the full half day, and now I've gone back to Emily D. Baker to see what her reaction is to this testimony, because she's not done any background research whatsoever on this trial. So I'd like to see her reaction, because all of this is coming out now, which is why I'm watching her feed. She's a
That
little
to
bit
me.
behind.
So you wanted to prepare
What do you mean, what
to make
discovery?
sure that you knew what you might be asked on cross-examination, correct?
I wanted to know what was coming. Yes.
And you knew
That's
that one of the things
fair.
that was coming after this meet. Well, let me ask it a different way.
Why would you want to know
During
what's
this meeting,
coming?
did Mr. Lowry tell you one of the
If
things
he's
that's
got
going to be
nothing to hide.
coming is you had an off-the-books meeting at Lank's house for 45 minutes? Did he tell you that?
No, that's not how I was told.
Did he tell you that the defense had uncovered a report that established that you were actually at Michael Lank's house for 45 minutes that had never been reported to the defense or the prosecution before the phone extraction had been done?
The DAs didn't
Tell you
know.
that?
I was told, I was asked, oh, were you at Michael Lank's on the 30th?
Oh my
So you
God!
had
I
a lot of
forgot.
time to come up with a story about why you were at Michael Lank's, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
I didn't need time to make up a story because I have the truth of why we went.
And the truth, according to you, is you pulled up at Michael Lank's house. The first responding officer and friends of the Alberts had a meeting with him the next day that was never reported to anybody for any purpose.
I
You just met with his wife out in the car while the car was running for 45 minutes
You have
to an hour.
opinions,
That's your
EDB?
story.
I'd love
It's
to
not a
hear 'em.
story, it's the truth. Carrie dropped her daughter off. The wife came out. Carrie is a talker.
You
They
wouldn't know the
started
truth
talking.
if
A
Alexa
tragedy had
backed into
happened
you.
the day before.
It is interesting, would you not agree, that the day before you had this off-the-books meeting at Michael Lank's house, Nicole Albert says, we'll get more info tomorrow,
Mm.
meaning the very day you show up at Lank's house.
Again, I never spoke with Mike Lank at his house. It was not an off the books meeting. It was Carrie dropping her daughter at one of her good friends' house, whose husband happens to be a Canton cop. That is what it is. That is the truth.
And a lot of coincidences. Do you agree?
Objection.
Christine.
It's argumentative.
She's not happy.
How did that get uncovered?
Yes.
I would bet the feds, but I have questions.
I knew she would.
Oh, for those of you in the chat saying I'm riveted, yep. Yep. Sure don't know what's coming next.
I
Because
do.
what the fuck?
That's,
Yeah.
by the way, what did Mr. Lally show you in respect of this issue about this meeting at Michael Lank's house?
He showed me nothing.
He just told you about it.
Brian
I
Tully
know.
told me.
Okay,
I
what did Mr.
can't
Tully
sleep with
tell
this.
you?
This
Trooper
is the
Tully?
best
What
bit.
exactly did he tell
I've
you?
been waiting all weekend
me
for this
about this.
testimony, this
Michael Lang
cross-examination.
He said, did you go to Michael Lank's on January 30th? And at first I said, no, I've never been to his house. And then I thought about it
Oh
and
my
I said,
God,
oh
I
my gosh,
forgot.
yes, I did go there. And that was the extent of the conversation.
You said, yeah, I did go there, and he didn't ask to follow up, like, what the heck were you doing at Michael Lank's house the day after this issue?
Objection.
This incident?
I'll allow it.
He didn't ask to follow up like that?
I do not believe he did.
So Trooper Tully, had you come down for an interview, he confronted you.
What are the odds Trooper Tully's like, I don't want to fucking know. I'm not going to ask questions I don't want to know the answer to. We'll just see what happens. That's me speculating snarkily, but
With a
Wow.
fact that had never been disclosed before, to wit, you showed up at Michael Lank's house. And
the
when you
defense
said,
attorney is writing as
"Yeah,
fast as I am
yeah,
right
I
now.
think your words were, oh my gosh, yeah, I think I did go there. And he didn't ask a follow-up question?
He was there. You're
Yes,
you're spinning all of this.
Ma'am, I do a
You're
lot of
spinning all
things.
of this.
I will spin. There's a judge here, make sure.
This is going to be a fight. Damn, have you met cross-examination?
Oh yeah, hang on. I think your words were, oh my gosh, yeah, I think I did go there.
Oh my
And he didn't
gosh.
ask a follow-up question?
I wanted to get her exact phrase. That's why I backed
He
it up.
was there.
Yes,
You're spinning all of this.
Ma'am, I do a lot of things.
Yeah.
I will spin. There's a judge here, make sure that I don't spin. I'm asking you a question. It's very direct.
I do not believe he asked me a follow-up question.
So that was the end of that conversation about Michael Lang, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Lally didn't have any follow-up questions.
I don't believe Mr. Lally was in the room.
Who else? I thought you said Mr. Lally, Ms. McLaughlin. I thought-
They were. They might not have been in the room at that time.
I see. So Mr. Lally just happened to, just saunter out?
It was a different time.
So Mr. Lally was in and out of the conversation?
Mr.
What are
Lally
you
was
doing
not there
awake
when
at
this
3 a.m.,
conversation
Andre?
happened.
Why is that?
That calls for speculation.
Because I met with Brian Tully and he was not there.
Is Brian Tully taking notes?
No,
He's a state trooper interviewing a witness and
he was.
Objection.
Sustained.
Listen.
The same report that has you at
pants on
Mr. Lang's house
Mhm.
also has you picking up Nicole Albert going by 34 Fairview just before you went to Michael Lang's house. You aware of that?
We did not pick up Nicole Albert.
So you went by 34 Fairview, then diverted. And right after you went by 34 Fairview, went directly over to Michael Lang's house. What was the reason that you stopped by 34 Fairview first?
We didn't stop by. Maybe Carrie slowed down, but we did not stop by 34.
So you drove by, did a drive-by.
Oh my
34
God, you're
Fairview.
full of shit.
Giggles? What?
No, that's how we get to Michael Lang's house.
If the report shows that you actually stopped at 34 Fairview and then went to Michael Lang's house, would we have another oh my gosh moment?
Nope, no oh my gosh moment. We did not pick up Nicole Albert.
Did anybody else go with you over to Michael Lang's house?
No, it was Carrie, myself, and her daughter.
Your Honor, maybe approach briefly.
Okay.
They've got to be almost done for the day.
Mm.
Oh, this cross is going to go on tomorrow, I would imagine. As they are
Yep.
approaching, I'm going to zoom because
Most
I
of the
do
day.
have a meeting today. Which means I'm going to have to zoom to get to questions.
Haha. no.
What you do if you're,
This is nearly done anyway. I'll be heading to bed.
let me ask you another question. Have you ever misplaced your phone?
Yes,
Just in life, everybody does it, right?
yes.
What's one of the first things you do if you're with your daughter or your husband or a friend and you're in your house and you misplace your phone?
You ping it on Find My iPhone.
Oh, I'll ask them to call my phone.
Even over and over and over, right?
Correct.
Could be as many as 5, 6, 7 times.
Does he think?
Usually I hear it the first or second time.
You're looking for a buzz.
Does he think they were looking for John O'Keefe's phone?
Yes,
or a
they
ring,
were.
Isn't that right?
Correct.
And you might do that if you're searching for a missing phone.
I ping
Right.
it.
Correct.
With regard to the calls that were deleted from your phone, you were asked about this under oath at another proceeding, weren't you?
Correct.
And you claimed at another proceeding that you had an explanation for all these missed calls, starting at 12:29, 12:41, 12:41, 12:43, 12:46, 12:47, 12:50.
Mhm.
You have an explanation for that, right?
Yeah,
Can I see the report?
a butt dial.
I'm asking you.
Do you
about your prior
remember?
testimony.
And I'm asking,
About these calls,
yes, I'm asking, can I see it?
Do you remember?
I'm asking you a different question. At your other at this other proceeding, which you were under oath,
Yes.
you explained that these calls were what? These missed calls, incessant missed calls. What were they? You used a word. I like 2 words.
I believe I used the word butt dials.
You claimed that every one of these calls was a butt dial. Is that right?
What?
Yes.
So according to you, you literally butt
Penny
dialed
dropping now, Em.
John O'Keefe's phone 6 times in the span of 19 minutes. Is that right?
I don't remember making any of those calls. So my assumption is I put my phone in my back pocket and that was it.
Well, when were you texting then? Because it was
When
in
you
your hand
dial
when you were
someone by
texting.
mistake, you hit a button,
It,
set your
it,
phone down.
it either
the phone
gets
has to
picked
be
up-
open. You'll agree with that, right?
it gets picked up or it goes to
Correct.
Can't be locked.
voicemail.
It takes several iterations.
How many
of movement
fucking
to get a
butt
phone open.
dials?
Face ID or password, right?
Correct.
So when you hit the button by mistake, walk away, that's a butt dial. People call butt dials. What happens with the call?
I assume it goes to voicemail.
Good assumption, because that's exactly what it does, isn't it? You've had a phone for a lot of years, right?
Yes,
It rings and rings and rings until it goes to voicemail.
correct.
So in order to hang up that butt dial, you have to interact with that phone yet again, don't you?
Yes.
So if you had 6 butt dials, 7, I think it's 7 butt dials, you'd not only have to interact with the phone once to butt dial John, you then have to interact with it every single time to turn off that
Hang up.
phone ringer so it doesn't go to voicemail,
I just put them in here. Thank you.
I suppose.
which makes 14 interfaces with that phone over the course of 19 minutes.
Thanks, buddy.
Is that right?
I mean, I guess I don't have it all right in front of me, but there were also text messages I was sending. So again, maybe I said, oh, shoot, I called them and then I turned it off.
But your claim is you don't remember those incessant butt dials and those incessant hangups at all, correct?
I honestly don't.
So you would have had to forget that you interacted with, by the way, you'll agree that the phone extraction showed that John O'Keefe got no voice.
My Tina's like, butt dials.
Right.
My
I
phone has
didn't
Face
look,
ID.
but
So that means you would have had to interact with that phone 14 times over the course of 19 minutes at the exact time frame that the Commonwealth suggests John O'Keefe lost his life.
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask that differently, and this will be your last question for today, please.
Yes, Your Honor. The period between 12:29 and 12:50, which is the exact period that you were, quote, butt dialing John multiple times, that's also the exact period that John O'Keefe was rendered incapacitated. Isn't that right?
Objection.
That's sustained. We'll start up again tomorrow, okay?
Thank you.
All right, folks, so I'm going to, want to stay there and walk out.
Done for the day.
All right, so jurors, please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation.
All right, Em.
If you
Let's hear
happen
it.
to see, hear, or read anything about the case, please disregard it. Now, tomorrow will be a full day. The forecast is going to be very hot. You'll see this courtroom fluctuates. It could be really cold in here, could be really hot in here. So maybe bring us sweaters. All right, let's see. Thank you.
Oh
Closing and leaving your notebooks.
boy.
All right. Well,
And that is the end of day 15. We are going to continue on cross-examination tomorrow. I have been wanting to get to the digital evidence. I think this is the first time that it's clear that the defense, hold on. I'm gonna have to summarize. I think it's clear this is the first, well, I don't know if anything's clear. I think this is the first time we've really heard clearly that the state believes that John O'Keefe was incapacitated sometime between 12:29 and 12:50 p.m. I wonder if the court's going to put something else back on the record. It seems like yes. Jury out.
May be seated.
Mr. Lally, who else might you have tomorrow?
Oh, we want to know.
So
Carrie.
Ms. Roberts would be next. Laura Sullivan, Marietta Sullivan, and then I think it would be Mr. Higgins after that.
All right. It's not likely we'll get through all of those, correct?
Probably.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow.
All rise for the court, please.
Jim, I'll see you too.
Sure.
Tomorrow, we will be hearing from Jen McCabe on cross-examination and from Carrie Roberts. So let's do a quick summary of today. I'm going to try to get to a few questions. Unfortunately, I have a meeting, but tomorrow's going to be a real full day in court. At the end of day 15, which was a half day in court, well, Jen McCabe is still on the stand for cross-examination, and we haven't even gotten to the googliness of 2:27 a.m. We've talked about deleted phone calls. We've talked about as the defense puts it, off the books meeting at Officer Lank's house, where this witness testified that she and Carrie Roberts went to drop Carrie's daughter off at Officer Lank's house on the 30th because Officer Lank's daughter and Carrie Roberts' daughter are good friends, and Officer Lank's wife came out and chatted with Carrie. And you know, Carrie's a talker. I think we've heard that about 16 times at a minimum, that, you know, Carrie's a talker. So we might have been there 45 minutes. But as the defense was asking on cross-examination, isn't that the day after Julie Albert texted? No, Nicole Albert texted, "We'll know more tomorrow." So what was in that conversation, and when did it get disclosed? And it seems that maybe it got disclosed during the federal investigation, but the jury doesn't know about that specifically. They know that there were other proceedings, and they know that this was discovered later. But what we also heard at the end of the day is that Carrie Roberts will be the next witness from the prosecution, and I am dying to hear it. But I want to hear from the cell phone experts now more than ever. It seems that there are phones in the Celebrite extraction on John O'Keefe's. No, that there are phone calls on the Celebrite extraction from victim John O'Keefe's phone that show multiple phone calls to his phone from Jen McCabe. But that on Jen McCabe's extraction, those phone calls were deleted off the phone. But what we know about Celebrite is the extraction of the phone will show you if calls have been deleted and what have you. But the records from the cell carrier will show if those calls went through, were answered, went to voicemail, what have you. This is why the defense was so pressed about the phones that were rehomed, because the phone records from the carrier don't show that. You need both the physical phone extraction and the carrier records to show what was deleted. There was so much information about deleted calls and texts in the Murdaugh case. When we get to the evidence from any experts, I'm very interested to see the timeline of the digital evidence. And it feels like on this cross-examination, we're finally starting to get some timeline of the digital evidence that did not come in direct. We also heard the defense read the full context of the text in this group chat that was Julie Albert said Channel 4 is at D&E, and it was then Julie said, what was the full? I wrote it down, but Julie said, Channel 4 is at D&E, tell Chris to tell them the guy was in the house. So even though that was brought up with Matt McCabe, we didn't hear, to my memory, the full text message. Matt McCabe said, no, them is Channel 4, but we didn't hear them read the full text. Matt said that's not the full text. So is that overreaching on the defense when they are leaving out parts of text? I don't think the full text looks great, but I think the leaving out the context also doesn't look great. There is so much in this case that is odd, that doesn't make sense, that is very strange behavior. I don't know if the defense needs to make it more than it is, because what it is not great. So it's just so odd to me why some things are being reached for when there is truly so much here in this case. There is lots of group texts going on talking about this case. Did I misstate it and say the guy wasn't in the house? When Matt McCabe texted, Julie said, Channel 4 is at D&E. Tell Chris to tell them the guy wasn't in the house. It makes sense there. Sylvia in the chat said, Emily, please don't take sides. I'm not taking sides. I think there are things the defense is doing that have worked really well for them. I think there's things the defense is doing that don't work really well for them. I think there's things the prosecution is doing that isn't helping their case at all. And I'm waiting for the digital evidence because, again, why reach when there's so much there? And there is a lot there. So with all of that, I'm at the point where I just want to see all the digital. I just want to see all the digital experts. I just want to see the digital data. Everything else makes no sense to me. The deleted calls, the butt dials, the calls that are answered, but none of the witnesses say they are answered. I just bring the cell records. Just bring the cell experts. That's it. I want to see the cell experts. That's it. That's where I'm at. So we will see. We'll see what happens tomorrow. There's a lot more cross-examination to go, isn't there? Because we haven't gotten to those Google searches, and it seems like there's a lot more to this case that we don't know yet. And 4 weeks in, we should know more. And from the defense is really the first time I'm hearing that the prosecution thinks that the victim was incapacitated at between 12:29 and 12:50. If it was said in opening statement, I missed it, or I can't remember it because so much was in opening statements, it was very hard to follow. I just want to see the phones. I want to see the phones from the victim. I want to see the rest of Jen McCabe's extraction. I want to see Karen Reed's phone. Just bring the phone. Just bring all the phones. Tell me.
All right. We're going to leave it there. Sorry, Em. This little Melbourneite is really, really knackered, but so glad she stayed up till 3:30 this morning to watch that. Because that cross-examination, or this cross-examination of this witness, will be the making of the case, or the breaking of the case, so to speak. All right. So with that, I shall say good night. Thank you for joining me. If you're on the live crew, replay crew, wherever you're coming from, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining. And I'm very, very weary. So I shall bid you adieu.
Covering true crime and police arrest, where the judges move and the defense rests.